In the depths of the roaring 20s, a quiet coastal town clings to the edge of the Massachusetts coast, shrouded in ominous tales and whispered rumours. Welcome to Innsmouth, a place veiled in shadows and secrets, where the line between sanity and madness is as fragile as the crumbling cliffs that overlook the churning sea. Once a bustling fishing community, Innsmouth languishes in decay, its dilapidated buildings bearing witness to the passage of time and the eerie transformation that has taken hold. But behind the worn facades, the ever-present fog, a darker truth lurks, a truth that defies human comprehension and threatens to unleash unspeakable horrors upon an unsuspecting world. This is 1928, Fall of Innsmouth, a campaign of psychological and eldritch horror using the Call of Cthulhu 7th edition rules by Chaosium, and based on the stories of H.P. Lovecraft. The Call of Cthulhu role-playing game is written by Sandy Peterson with later revisions by Lynn Willis. The 7th edition is a collaboration between Paul Fricker and Mike Mason. Music used in this podcast is by Vivek Abhishek, Kevin MacLeod, and Ghoulish Grin Films. Welcome back, everyone, to our Call of Cthulhu Fall of Innsmouth campaign. I am, as ever, your keeper of arcane lore, and the longer we go on, the less benevolent I become. Let's see how you pull through this session as your investigation continues in part 2 of Bless the Beast and Children. You're looking into the kidnapping of Carter Anderson, the infant son of wealthy industrialist and electronics magnate Charles Anderson. He's been kind enough to allow you all to use his grand suite at the Hotel Miskatonic as your base of operations during your investigation. It's more like an apartment than a suite. There's a kitchen, a proper bathroom, a laundromat, and multiple separate bedrooms. And so, even though you're on the job and you've uncovered some pretty grisly things thus far, you were able to retire after your first day of investigation in something resembling comfort. Ruth and Connie have been assigned to the infant Carter's bedroom. There's a single bed in there and a couch pressed against one of the walls that Connie has turned into her bed, opting to give Ruth the bed for the first night. Neither of you, of course, can fit into the small wooden crib that Carter Anderson was using. And the first of you to awaken this morning on this cold, dreary day, this otherwise bright, sunny summer day, is Ruth. You sit bolt upright in bed, gasping for breath, sweat running down your face, your clothes drenched, sticking to your body, awakening from a dream that even now fades from your mind rapidly. You're able to piece together a few scattered fragments. Something involving your acting teacher, something involving your father. One saying that he's disappointed in you, the other saying that you'll never amount to anything. And then the corpse of Emily Langford lying bloodied in that park a block away from the church in downtown Arkham, maggots eating away at her flesh, her glassy eyes staring up at you, unknowing. And yeah, I'm aware of the bag rustling noise. Don't worry about it. It's happening in the background. I can't really do anything, but it will pass. Consider it part of Ruth's ongoing auditory hallucinations. So, Ruth, before you settled to bed last night, you were in something of a state. Not only were you suffering the ongoing effects of seeing Emily Langford's body and having all of those repressed emotions that you'd bottled up, tried to forget about since that night on Beacon Island come rushing back, but you've also been beating yourself up with a sense of self-loathing and guilt because that hysteria you showed in the park in front of Boothby and Baxter, that was decidedly out of character for you, Ruth. And you know that. Ruth, you know that you're usually pretty good at keeping your emotions in check, even when you're in inner turmoil. And seeing yourself fall apart like that, looking back on it and seeing you lose yourself to hysteria, screaming, gasping for breath, hyperventilating, it embarrasses you because it's not at all how you would normally act. And this is the feeling that returns to you as the aftermath of the nightmare quickly floods from your brain, and you barely have a moment to register that it's there before... BANG! Startled, you turn to your left to see the window of the bedroom rattling as... I'd like you to make a sand check, please, for me. See how
Good.
you...
It's 55 against 34.
That's a fail. The window rattles again as something throws the full weight of its body at the glass panes. You feel your mouth dropping open in shock as one of the creatures from Beacon Island, one of the scuttling half-insect, half-fish abominations that pursued you that night, that tried its very best to tear you to shreds, that almost managed to do so, bears the full brunt of its body against the window again and again, rattling the glass, rattling the very frame of the window itself, seemingly shaking the very walls of the infant suite with each blow. And what passes for its eyes, they're fixated directly on you, and you recognize that same look of bloodlust and hunger in its milky, beady, fish-like eyes. What do you do, Ruth?
I think first of all, she's going to shake her head and close her eyes and confirm that it's actually happening.
Go ahead and make a power check for me.
She's going to pinch herself. Yeah, power. This is not going to go great. Oh, for fuck's sake, it rolled from a 55 to a 54 against 40.
You close your eyes, shaking your head, knowing that this must be some sort of waking nightmare, and yet hearing the window rattle again, your eyes flicker open, and you feel a scream building in your throat as the creature throws itself at the window once again, and the sound of shattering glass fills the room. And as the insect fish monster, as the youngling from Beacon Rock lunges through the air towards you, extending its spindly, spidery legs, its long, scythe-like claws primed in your direction, you raise your hands to protect yourself, shutting your eyes to embrace the inevitable. And it doesn't come. Silence. Small thump of something landing at your feet on the carpet. Slowly open your eyes and find a bloodied bluebird lying at your feet, blood pouring from the top of its head, shards of glass still embedded in its body and wings. It whimpers, its body trembles, and then it succumbs to its wounds and ceases to move, taking its last breath.
Oh, that's a good sign.
It's at this point that Connie feels herself being dragged from unconsciousness back into the land of the living. The sound of shattering glass is what jerks you awake. You pull yourself up on the couch, Connie, the blanket falling off you, to see Ruth standing there, her clothes frozen to her body, drenched with sweat, as a bloodied bluebird lies at her feet, a small trail of shattered glass leading from its body to the bedroom window. The small hole in the window pane still dripping with flesh, blood, and little bits of feather.
Oh, oh my god, what in the heaven's name happened to you?
Oh, okay. This is gonna sound weird, but you see a bird, right?
Yes, a very injured bird.
Okay. Good. That's good. Let's do you know how to look after birds?
Can't say that I do.
Okay.
The door to the... Go ahead, Connie.
Is there a veterinarian or something nearby?
Somewhere in Arkham, but you figure it's probably too late for this bird. It's already ceased to move. Doesn't look like it's drawing breath. It looks like the poor thing didn't stand a chance. Life snuffed out so quickly on a whim. The door to the bedroom bursts open, and Baxter, Alfredo, and Lord Smythe, who were based out in the main lounge room living area of the suite, come marching into the room. Baxter's hands on the baseball bat that's slung over his shoulder. Alfredo, perhaps, with his hands in his coat where his Tommy gun remains concealed. But when they see that all appears to be calm, they visibly relax, and you all take in the sight of what lies before you, this bizarre omen, this poor bird who flew straight through the window, killing itself instantly. You all heard the shattering glass. and it sounded like something much bigger than this unfortunate creature that lies broken on the carpet.
Lord Smythe returns his Webley revolver to the inside of his coat. I see. Well, as we're all up, shall we have tea?
Alfredo creeps to the broken window. Saying nothing, he peers out, scanning the streets down below. Still early, you'd say perhaps not more than 7:30 a.m. But downtown Arkham is already bustling. The streets are already filled with crowds of people beginning their early morning commute. And nobody down there seems to have noticed what's happened up here in your suite. Crowds of people simply moving past indifferent. Well, all the glass appears to be on the inside. Alfredo notices, kneeling down, picking up a couple shards off the carpet. Seems like a freak of nature, an accident, but, Alfredo seems like he's been in a room where someone's flung things through the glass before. He seems a little bit on edge. Well, what's all this racket? Says Charles Anderson as he steps into the room, still wearing a plush purple dressing gown. What are you all standing around in here, flapping your gums for, smashing windows?
Ruth just points to the bird.
The culprit was something less than a guest, it would appear.
Alfredo's already kneeled over the bird. He's gently wrapping it in a handkerchief and removing the gruesome little thing off the floor. He briefly holds it out, showing Charles Anderson the broken little corpse. And the industrialist glances at it for a second, and then he shakes his head and he says, I hope that's not an omen. Ha! As if I believe in such things, but... He turns towards Connie. You brought a psychic with you, so, I don't know, maybe you should see this as a clue from the heavens that you should be getting back to work and searching for Carter before things get worse. You understand?
Oh, of course.
I mean, we're on your paycheck, so...
Yeah.
If you say jump, I ask how high.
I'll have my assistant notify the hotel that they have a window to repair. He turns to Alfredo. Dump that thing in the trash can out in the lobby on your way out, would you? I have many things to attend to today, so I'll not complain about the rude wake-up call. Let's consider it an opportunity to get a head start on today's investigations, shall we? He turns around, and as he steps into the door frame, ready to leave the room, he looks over his shoulder and he says, I'll be out most of today. I'll be back by tonight, and I'll be expecting to hear you've made some progress in searching for Carter. When you returned last night, you seemed quite tight-lipped on what you'd actually been doing, and, well, I'm not the type of man who will question the efficiency at which you're working. Baxter comes highly recommended, after all. But for my own peace of mind, I would like to hear some good news when I return from a long day of corporate finagling, he says, and he steps out of the room. You hear his soft footfalls moving across the lounge room, and then the door of his bedroom being pulled softly shut. How are you all feeling?
Eager.
Ruth is hastily assembling a visage of comfort and not being sort of stressed. It is coming up slowly and in pieces.
Your acting training pays off, and turning your back from the others, you take a few moments to compose yourself, and when you face them again, you look slightly more dignified. You look to the rest as if, just like them, you woke to find this poor bird broken and dying at your feet after flinging itself through the window. And there is no clue to the others that you did not have a good night's sleep, and that you woke as tormented as you were when you retired the night before. So as you all make your way out into the suite...
Well, if before we actually step out, Alfredo is going to look a little bit nervous and say, I don't want to say it, but you all know what a bluebird is, don't you? It's the very symbol of happiness in life. I think since we got a psychic, we all know that there's evil magic involved. We all seen it. I reckon our psychic needs to have a look at this void and see what we can find out about it.
And also, more prosaically, unless the glazier was negligent or that glass had a flaw, I find it unlikely that a blue bird itself could shatter the glass so thoroughly. But that's merely taking a pragmatic viewpoint.
Ruth turns to Connie and gives sort of an eyebrow raised look of, does that sound like it meant literally anything?
Connie, I'd like you to make an occult check, but I know you don't have occult, so you can either make an occult check and see if you could try to glean any legitimate significance from it, or you can simply make a fast talk check to see what you're able to make up on the spot.
While this is going on, Lord Fall of Innsmouth will kneel down and try to see if the bird was thrown or otherwise propelled at great velocity.
You notice that its wings don't appear to be outstretched, Lord Smythe. If it was in mid-flight, you would expect it to be spread-eagled on the floor, but no, its wings are neatly tucked into its plumage.
You mean diving?
Or grabbed and thrown.
But all the way from down there, you're up on the top floor of the Hotel Miskatonic. It would take truly superhuman strength for someone to hurl even a tiny blackbird that high up.
How thick is this glass? Is it just a standard window pane?
It looks like a standard window pane. Probably maybe not as strong as something that you'd find on the first floor. This is basically the penthouse suite, and they're probably not expecting the window to be subject to vandalism. But, Baxter, you can make an education check if you like. Because I doubt you have mechanical repair.
No, Baxter has attended university and knows mathematics inside and out. He did a stint of physics, mathematics, the whole spectrum. So the logic of this isn't lining up. This shouldn't be possible.
It was a 46 against my 70 for fast talk, by the way.
Lovely. So how does Baxter go?
What was the check again, sorry?
Education. Or you can attempt mechanical repair if you want. You probably only have 10%, but...
a critical success with an 11.
Alright, I'll count that as if you had rolled mechanical repair and succeeded in that case. So, Baxter heads over to the window, peering down just like Alfredo did, but rather than checking the street for signs of trouble, Baxter seems intent on inspecting the architecture itself, the craftsmanship of the frame and the glass, and you place your hands on the window frame, Baxter, and you rattle it, trying to see if it gives, and it's very firm. You rap your knuckles at a piece of the glass that remains. It seems fairly sturdy. You even unsling your baseball bat and softly tap the glass with the tip of it, and don't even succeed in making a crack. It's certain you wouldn't know if this is particularly high quality glass, but it's obvious to you that this was not cheaply made, and the force at which that bird must have been travelling to pass straight through the glass, it's obvious to you that nothing adds up here. Something is weird. It's unexplainable. Connie breaks the silence by looking at Alfredo, and Connie, you don't know a lot about occult because, well, being an occultist, that's just the facade, your con. But if you like, you can tell Alfredo all about how a bluebird, the universal symbol of happiness, hurling itself through the window is a sign in some quite primitive tribal religion that terrible things are to come. Very generic, very bland and very bleak interpretation, but it's just vague and likely enough to make sense.
A thing has occurred to me. Mr. Baxter, you're an investigator, yes? By modern methods, I assume?
Only the most modern of methods.
Do you have a fingerprint dusting kit?
He absolutely would.
He absolutely would,
Birds'
yeah.
wings are quite oily. Could you do a quick dusting and see if there are any prints impressed upon them?
Yeah, he would be happy to oblige.
Mm.
Is that a roll you want me to make, or is that just something we'll do?
I would ask him to make a spot hidden check for me.
That is a regular pass.
So you dust the window frame, and you find there's quite a few fingerprints on the inside. Some of them yours, and this is to be expected. There would be fingerprints left by previous guests and hotel staff. But you do notice a set of partial prints on the banister on the other side. If you were to hazard a guess, you would think somebody scaled the side of the building, but the Hotel Miskatonic is a sheer surface in the middle of downtown, and it boggles your mind to even consider how they would have accomplished this feat without being noticed.
He's still going to relay the theory on. It simply doesn't add up without somebody having...
Sorry, go on.
No, you can go, sorry.
I was actually asking you to dust the bird's wings itself to see if somebody had grasped it, but...
Oh, yes. Well, the fingerprint dust doesn't really reveal any fingerprints on the bird itself. The feathers have been ripped out, the blood's drenched what remains, caked it together. So any fingerprints would be long destroyed, but you do notice, Baxter, some thumb and finger-shaped imprints on the underside of the bird, just under its right wing, indicating that someone clasped it tightly.
I hate to say it, but it seems like this might be a message. There's no way that a bird can fly straight in through a hard window.
Oh, it's definitely a threat.
Enough of a
I'm not
threat
sure
that
if
they
it's a
climbed the
threat,
building.
but
Boothby, what did you say?
Is it enough of a threat that he climbed up a however many stories building in the middle of the
yeah,
day?
how high up are we?
Yeah, you're up
Third floor.
on the 5th floor, so it's quite a ways. If this is a message, someone really wanted you to see it.
Do you
And
know what this tells me?
go ahead, Lord Smythe.
This tells me that we're on the right track.
Hmm.
Shall we proceed?
Yeah, and yet there is something. Go ahead, Alfredo.
Does Alfredo think that this is
Mm.
a position he could get to?
You could try and climb out, Alfredo, but one thing you notice is that even though the fingerprints are there on the outside banister, clear as day, the banister itself is maybe an inch and a half wide. There is barely any room to stand there or even hold onto it. And even you, Alfredo, you are small, you are nimble, and even you think that climbing out there would be a swift way to topple to your death down in the street.
So I think this is even beyond what I would risk to get a job
Yeah.
done.
Exactly. Which means either whoever did this is extremely professional, more than even you would be, or they're very determined, and this is personal. And that realization, along with Lord Smides that you must be on the right track, is simultaneously unsettling, but encouraging. And so, you try to put the message into the back of your mind for now, hoping that it'll all fall into place later. As you prepare a quick breakfast for yourselves in the sweets kitchen, clean up in the bathroom, and gather your supplies, preparing yourself for another day of investigations. And as you step out into the 5th floor hallway and begin to walk to the elevator that carries you down into the Hotel Miskatonic's opulent lobby, you must decide where you're going to take your investigation next. You have 2 pressing leads. The first, uncovered by Connie and Lord Smythe, is the interesting case of Harold Snowden, the former priest at the Arkham Presbyterian Church, and the case of Danny Ames, a boy who went missing during his time at the church and was found outside of town in a quite feral state, and has spent his days since in the Arkham Sanitarium. The other lead, of course, is the one that was uncovered by Baxter, Ruth, and Boothby, with Alfredo chipping in on the side, learning the identity of who you're most likely dealing with. And that is, of course, on the body of Emily Langford, the deer tag. The deer tag that points to an address, 53 River Street, the most likely hideout of the kidnappers. According to Alfredo, who are most likely to be men by the name of Castle and Talamentes, great war veterans who turned to a life of crime, and some of the most dangerous professionals in the Arkham underworld. So how would you like to proceed?
Well, it seems quite obvious to me that we have a lead on exactly who did this, and we should go pay them a visit as soon as possible. I do intend to stop past the police precinct and let them know that this is what we're doing, but
Chances are they won't get the note for a while and won't be able to come swing by till long after we're gone.
Yeah, Baxter, professional as always, and you did promise Chief Nichols that you would keep him abreast of what's happening. So Baxter is inclined to go and check out the hideout. What does everyone else feel like doing?
Well, I doubt we'll just be let in and
Mhm.
allowed to root around in there. We might want to have a plan before we just walk into the hideout of two potential murderers.
You could probably scout out the neighborhood, ask some of the neighbors anything they know about the place or its inhabitants.
I want to find this missing child as much as the rest of you, but I do agree. I don't want to die doing it.
Shall we say Boothby and Baxter will head over to the neighborhood on their way to the house, see what they can scope up. That leaves Ruth, Connie, and Alfredo.
Alfredo's
And Lord
definitely gonna go to the house.
Yeah, accompanying Baxter and Boothby. Alright. Lord Smythe, I presume you want to follow up on Danny Ames, unless you feel the hideout is particularly pressing.
Lord Smythe's eyes glitter as he considers the others. And here's the thing of it. This is their test to him, though they don't know it. So he is going to watch and wait and see where they put him.
Which leaves Ruth and Connie. Now, Connie, you're a charlatan. You probably are not keen to go and knock on the door of a hideout where hardened, dangerous criminals live.
Yeah, no,
Perhaps
wasn't
you're
thinking of that one.
Perhaps you're intrigued instead about this story that Lord Smythe had to tell about this Danny Ames and his relation to Harold Snowden.
That sounds a bit more up her alley, yeah.
Ruth's too.
Ruth's too.
Doesn't fancy her chances scoping around a known bandit's hideout.
It's decided then, as the elevator arrives at the first floor and the operator jerks the door open, and as you step out onto the red carpet of the hotel lobby, you realise that Lord Smythe hasn't volunteered to be part of either group. And so, Connie, you're the one. You notice simply that the groups are uneven, and Lord Smythe was the one who brought Danny Ames to your attention, after all, and so you think nothing of it when you motion for him to follow you.
Probably for the best. Wouldn't want to. We are being watched. It wouldn't be good to leave two ladies unescorted.
Indeed. And so, with your investigations decided, you bid each other silent looks of good luck and agree to meet later to recap as necessary. And then you push open the doors and step out into the sweltering New England summer heat. The shadows are already long, and the townspeople of Arkham scurrying between them, taking cover from the humidity and the sun that seems to always oppressively bear down upon you. Let's go ahead. I would like Lord Smythe to roll a d10 for me, and we'll decide which group we're going to follow first.
Very well. 6.
6. Baxter, Boothby, and Ruth it is. So, Baxter, Boothby, and Ruth. I assume you're going to travel in style in Boothby's car again?
assume Boothby will let us back in.
What do you think, Boothby?
Wait, is Ruth coming with us? I thought she was with
Oh,
Smokey.
wait, no, yeah. Sorry, Alfredo, I mean.
Okay, as long as they promise not to make a mess, then I guess I'll let them into the car.
Alfredo, as Boothby leads you across the parking lot, you spy his car, and it is something to behold. This is no generic Model T or an old farm truck or a clapped out old automobile that's been held together with duct tape over the last 10 years. This is a Rolls Royce. This is top tier quality, a Rolls Royce Phantom.
I whistle in appreciation and pat the brim of my hat.
Boothby, do you appreciate Alfredo's acknowledgement of your wealth?
I always do.
You always do.
I kind of nod and go, she's beautiful, isn't she?
Sure is a work of art. Is your shotgun in there?
Always.
These boys were gonna be visiting?
Yeah, as always. You never know when it's going to come in handy.
You guys
Look,
cover
as long as he
me.
gets us there in one piece, I don't care what we ride in.
That's fair.
You guys cover me. You try and stay back a bit. Light them up if you get a chance. The cops aren't gonna care if we hand these two sticks.
Light him up. What are you talking about? We're going to take a look around, not go around and execute people. That is the agreement, right?
Are you talking in like euphemisms?
No, I'm talking very literally.
Well, we have to be prepared for the possibility that we might run into unwelcome guests while we look around.
You know that when we show up, they're gonna try and kill us.
It's what you'd do after all, Alfredo.
He makes sure he's got a fresh drum of 45 in his Thompson, and he cocks it and takes the safety off.
Yeah. And then climbs into the back seat of the car nonchalantly.
Checking to make sure he's not dirty and he doesn't have any dead bird bits on him because he doesn't want to spoil this car.
Yeah. He takes a few minutes to compose himself and make sure his suit is immaculate, make sure his weapon is loaded, and then shows Boothby how to get the shotgun he sent working, how to cock it, where the ammunition goes, how to slide open the barrel, while Baxter makes a phone call from the lobby of the hotel. You're not able to get a hold of Chief Nichols himself, Baxter. At this hour, he's only just arrived at the precinct and he's handling the morning briefing, but the keen secretary assures you that your message will be passed on as soon as possible. You know what the police are like, though, Baxter, and even though she says she'll be passing on the message as soon as possible, in your mind, it's obvious that he probably won't hear that you're going after the kidnappers till at least lunchtime.
Yeah, Baxter will just leave a message saying exactly where they're going and what they intend to do. They're going to look around, and he'd very much appreciate the police's presence as soon as possible.
Right, 53 River Street. Okay, I've just wrote it down. Okay, as soon as the chief is out of his morning meeting, I will slide this on his desk. I will say it came from Baxter, and that this could be the way to close the Carter Anderson case. I'm sure he'll be very appreciative and scramble to provide backup as soon as he can, says the receptionist. as she hangs up, wishing you good luck. And then Baxter finally returns to the others, joining them in the car, just in time for Boothby to turn the crank and for the engine to roar to life. The car reverses out of the parking lot and swiftly joins the early morning traffic. Just another group of commuters moving through the clogged arteries of downtown Arkham. Boothby, I presume you're driving?
Yes.
Go ahead and make a drive check for me.
Okay.
Just to see how much spare time you'll have when you turn up.
32 against a 40.
40? You're an Arkham local, and unlike a lot of people of your pedigree, and looking at Lord Smythe, you're quite happy to drive yourself. You consider it something of an art, something of a sport. The man's sport, driving a fine machine like this. And the fine vintage of your vehicle certainly makes it stand out on the streets, and you're pretty sure a couple of the people you pass by even recognize that is Kenneth Boothby in the driver's seat, and they merge out of the way to let you through. You treat this as if it's any other early morning commute, picking the most direct route there, and you happen to make good time, and it's just shy of 8:30 a.m. when your car pulls into the Riverside district, and you turn onto River Street, making your way slowly through the Shoreside residential neighborhood. This neighborhood is one of Arkham's less socially conscious neighborhoods. Being next to the river and being away from the hustle and bustle of downtown Arkham, it's fallen behind a bit. The houses here aren't exactly falling apart. They're still fine pieces of architecture, or they would have been about 10 years ago, but there is an undeniable sense of neglect and despair to this so far very sleepy neighborhood. The streets are almost deserted, and you don't see a single person out in the yard. You see a face or two peering out through the windows, watching the car roll by, but they never give you so much as a second glance, pulling the blinds shut as soon as they determine that you're not a local. You end up parking the car on the side of the road in front of a vacant lot at the end of the street. And then Boothby kills the engine, and you climb out, taking stock of the neighborhood around you. What would you like to do?
Well, we need to get info on that house before we go into it.
Yeah,
So
53, number 53.
I mean, you've seen the wonders that canvassing can do last time we looked around. I recommend we take a house each, work our way up and down the street. See if any of the neighbors know or see, or have seen, or hear anything about this place.
Yeah.
We probably shouldn't say we're detectives. This seems like the kind of area that's a little bit hesitant to speak to authority.
Hey, you can take whatever approach that you feel necessary.
What do you think, Ruth?
Alfredo.
Hey, what do you think, Alfredo? Sorry,
Yeah,
I keep
I'm not
forgetting
there.
Ruth. I keep forgetting Ruth is not there.
Alfred. Well, I don't know. I'm assuming, if we're doing canvassing from the house that we're trying to learn about, are they going to be able to see people going door to door.
It's quite likely. It's a fairly tightly packed street. There's not much room between any of the houses, and it's sleepy enough that Boothby's car driving into the street was enough to make people peer out of their windows at you. So if anyone's watching from number 53, they would almost certainly see people door knocking, canvassing. And Alfredo, you're not really much for canvassing. You prefer the direct method of just, casing the joint.
Yeah, that's true. But, I want to try and work with the others. Boothby, you got, I don't know, a suitcase or, a briefcase or any kind of case in here that we could, pretend we're chumps going door to door selling something expensive, I don't know, fire insurance or aluminum siding or whatever?
I'm quite ahead of you, my friend. And Boothby pulls out where he has essentially a 20s credit card for Boothby's, showing that he is quote-unquote an employee of Boothby's, because technically he is.
Technically he is. And, one of Boothby's favorite things to do in his spare time is pretend to just be a rank and file Boothby's employee and just spend the day in the department store to pick out who should be fired for being just slightly not good enough at their jobs.
So we are going to be promoting a sale at Boothby's and encouraging people to try out our lovely coats and perhaps even get the newest edition of the Detective Phillips novels.
Do we have a case? We gotta have a case. We gotta have something that the guys in 53 can see us showing stuff. Otherwise, they're gonna think we're asking questions.
Baxter just directly hands over his briefcase. It's full of accounting documents and notes and all sorts of things. And he expressly says, you're not to show anybody these documents. These are private, these are personal, these belong to my clients. You're not to hand them out. You take the case, use it for whatever you need, but I will hold you liable if you show them to anybody.
I'm going to get the papers, and I'm going to put them on the inside with all the contents out of sight, so that I can be being what I am. I've got to justify my existence. I'm going to be the person they brought along to hold the case, and I'll open it up, and we'll just put a coat in there, and the books, and make some crap display.
There's a couple old Detective Phillips novels in the boot of Boothby's car. They all have lurid titles like The Case of the Extra Leggy Dame, and Dames to Kill For. So you pile them into the briefcase, and when you prop the briefcase open, anyone would just see the coat and the books, and it could look at a glance like you're selling something. So you're agreeing to go with an insurance grift. So I will ask a roll from each of you. First of all, from Boothby, a credit rating roll to establish an appearance of legitimacy.
47 against 60.
Lovely. Boothby's got this well in hand. He's always dressed in his finest. And that Boothby's employee's card is genuine. You certainly look like you're professionals here on business. I will ask from Baxter for an accounting role to quickly coach the others on what sort of language they can use that would sound believable for someone hawking insurance.
That is a regular pass.
Regular pass. You're an accountant, not an insurance, but, you tell them to throw around lots of words like premiums and interest rates and return on investment and things of that nature, and you should sound genuine. And finally, Alfredo, to round off this little ensemble, I would like you either to make a performance or fast talk check to play the part of the harmless briefcase bearer, or make an intimidate check to pass yourself off as the stern, dumb muscle that these insurance brokers bring along to try to unnerve people into signing up for things without having a chance to think about it.
Well, being all of 3 foot, I don't think he's going to be very compelling as the muscle. Could you make a roll of fast talk? I have a skill of 25.
25, lovely. Let's see how you do with the fast talk. Exactly 25. Lovely. It's going to go swimmingly. So, you spend about the next hour canvassing the neighborhood, knocking on doors one at a time. The first few times you don't get an answer at all. When you finally get an answer, the person on the other side of the door takes a single look at the Boothby's card, and Baxter looking professional and Alfredo holding a briefcase and says, "I don't want nothing," and slams the door in your face. But finally, after trying again and again and again, you happen to find someone who's cooperative. At number 11, right at the very end of the street, one of the last houses you try, you knock on the door, and it almost instantly opens, and a happy, friendly-faced, short, middle-aged man with greying hair steps out onto the patio. His eyes light up as he sees you. He waves in genuine excitement and he says, "Oh, morning, gentlemen. What can I do you for? You out selling something, handing out pamphlets, just looking to shoot the shit?"
Boothby kind of like doffs his hat and is like, "Hello, my good sir. We are from the Boothby's department store," and he motions to his nice little card. "We were just looking to talk to you about our newest line of products and see how interested you may be."
Oh, fancy smancy. Yeah, I shopped at Boothby's before. My wife bought the, one of those fancy refrigerators from there. Spent her ma's inheritance on it, and oh boy, has that made our lives easier. So, what can I do you for? You're obviously selling some products, and, well, you know what they say, gotta keep up with the Joneses, so, show me what you got.
Right, Boothby pulls out one of the Detective Phillips novels, this one with a very scantily clad woman on the front, because he can tell this man is a man of taste, and goes, "Well, we have these lovely novels, the Detective Phillips series. Have you heard of it?"
What's that there? The Tale of the Milky Broad. I don't think I've read that one, actually. I didn't know there was a new one had come out. Sure, color me interested. How much are you selling how much you selling for a copy?
I gotta do some math, hold on.
Milky.
Yeah, didn't like that. Are we all together, or are we
Yes,
all
yeah,
canvassing
you're
separate?
all-
Okay, cool.
You've got to be together to sell the image.
Probably about like 20 to 25 cents if it's a non-Scott book and not a dime novel. No, if it's a
That
dime
sounds
novel,
about right.
there's your answer.
Yeah, I would go with probably a quarter. Boothby overcharges for his shit novels. He thinks they're high art.
Yeah, so Boothby writes the kind of book that would sell for 10 cents, but he sells it for 25, a quarter. A quarter? Oh. Well, I suppose Detective Phillips is a cut above all the other trash. So, yeah, sure, I'll take one. I'll take two of them, because I got a friend in neighborhood down the way who would be keen to get his hands on this one as well. And you know what? I'm sure that will make your day, because you won't find many in this neighborhood who would appreciate fine literature.
Your friend down the way, would you mind telling me, where he lives so I might visit his home and see if maybe if he would be interested in any of our other books, perhaps some Detective Phillips novels he hasn't gotten yet?
Oh, yeah, well, I suppose you probably knocked on the door at number 53 or passed by it on your way here, didn't you? But, you wouldn't have got a response because, Mr. Castle, he's out of town at the moment. I've been, looking after his house for him. It ain't much to look after. You've seen this neighborhood. Not a lot of folks in this neighborhood have got lots of money for fancy gardens or lawns or things of that nature. So, as long as no one's breaking in or keeping a suspicious eye on the place, all I gotta do is walk past, make sure it looks like nobody's been by, and when he gets back, I'll tell him everything's fine and dandy, and, well, brighten up his day with a new Detective Phillips novel.
Actually, on the way past, did we notice if that black Ford truck was there?
So, on the way past, you deliberately decided to not knock on the door of 53. You decided you would leave that for last, if at all. So, when you got to 53, you actually crossed the street and walked past on the other side. So you didn't get a very close look at the house, but Baxter, with your spot hidden, you did indeed notice that the driveway appeared to be empty. But that didn't really stand out to you until hearing it mentioned just now that he's out of town, because at the end of the driveway was a garage, and you thought that the Ford was probably just inside.
Okay, Dax is gonna go fishing then. Your friend, does he go out of town often?
Oh,
Does he
Mr.
travel for work or?
Yeah, Mr. Castle, he's a businessman. He tells me he's in the, import-export business, so, he travels all around New England, goes up to Boston. Sometimes he travels as far as New York, and one time he went all the way down to the West Coast, and, so he can be gone for days at a time. Actually, come to think of it, he took a new job recently, said he was, working on acquiring some things for, a priest of all people, and, said he could source it all locally, but the issue was getting the goods up to the priest, and so he told me he'd be out of town for a few days, and that's happened quite a few times. Seems like he's gone at least half of every week, if I had to say so.
What a hard-working gentleman he must be, then.
He's, well, you know, I chalk most of it up to that assistant of his, the Mexican guy, Talamentes. He seems to be the one who gets most of the work done, but Mr. Castle's the brains of the operation. He winks at Boothby.
Boothby nods. So Telementes, has he? It's curious that, being Castle's right-hand man, that he wouldn't be the one watching the house.
I suppose, but this time he took Telementes with him, said that he was necessary for the work, and, well, look, normally he'd leave Telementes behind, but in the long run I thought he thought it was easier to just have me do it. After all, not many folks in this neighborhood seem to take kindly to Telementes. Nobody here speaks Italian, so hard for the guy to keep Mr. Castle's present interests in the neighborhood held down.
Right, sounds
Interest.
like we should drop past another time. See if we can sell them any of our established novels.
Well, sure. I'm sure if you left a card in his mailbox or something, he'd be happy to follow up when he gets back. I'm not sure I remember if he said he was coming back sometime today or tomorrow. He shrugs. I suppose it doesn't really matter. Anyway, thank you for the books, Mr. Boothby. I'll be diving into this one tonight. I can't wait to see whether Detective Phillips meets up with that leggy dame, the one who smokes like a chimney again. The one he did in the back of the moving car in the last book. Something about her really speaks to me.
All right,
Boothby
well, you enjoy
nods
your novel,
extremely
and
sagely.
You have a good day, sirs, he says, and he salutes Boothby as he pulls the door shut, and you hear him shuffling away.
oh, that was surprisingly easy.
So you've
Well, I am
learned
a
that...
novelist.
Yeah, you are a good novelist. So you've learned that apparently Castle and Telementes are not home today. In fact, they may not be home for the rest of today. It's up to you what you'd like to make of this.
Sounds like a great time to go and poke around.
Yeah, I would say, Alfredo, with your criminal mind, you can't think of any better time to case a joint as when the target's out of town.
I think they're going to be man traps.
Probably a good assumption.
I think I can get these guys inside the house without any of us getting shot, stabbed, macerated, or seen.
Well, this is sort of what you normally do. And while you're quite sure that Castle and Telementes will have left something behind to make sure no cops or other brown noses get involved, you sort of know what to expect, and you think the chances of getting everyone inside the house unnoticed are pretty good.
Well, you gentlemen would like, or will get us in. And I will take them around the back or the side or wherever seems to be the best strategy.
Yeah. What does everyone else think?
Sounds like a great idea to Baxter. He doesn't have lockpick.
Yeah.
Good as time as any.
So you turn around and trudge back up the street towards number 53. It's quite a derelict-looking house, actually. It's secluded from the rest of the neighborhood, and it's nearly hidden by a surrounding barrier of thick, overgrown trees. The only part of the house you can see from the street is a bit of the front patio and the door, and of course the driveway that leads to the garage. And as you approach it, Baxter, with your spot hidden, you quickly notice fairly recent-looking auto tracks in the dirt driveway.
Does it look like the car is usually parked outside in the dirt and it left, or it's just tracks from the garage all the way out?
It's as if someone's recently driven out of the garage. It doesn't look like the truck is regularly parked on the driveway, and you didn't really expect it to be, because you know that the police are looking for a black Ford truck, so these criminals would be incredibly stupid to just leave it parked on the driveway in plain view. So I'm going to put a map of the house up in Owlbear Rodeo, just so you know what you're looking at. But the house itself is a humble, single-story affair. There's a one-car garage attached to the right-hand side of the house. As you make your way up the dirt driveway, you notice that the yard is absolutely overgrown with weeds. There's more weeds than blades of grass. They're choking the life out of all the other foliage. And quite interestingly, as you approach the front door, you see the mailbox poking out of a tuft of overgrown foliage, tilted to the side, barely managing to still stand up. It looks as if it's about a week or two away from just fully giving in and collapsing into the overgrowth and disappearing. And neither the name Castle nor Talamentes is written on the mailbox. Instead, the name Kenneth Ross is still discernible on the rusty mailbox.
In between, is there like, you know how you look at some houses and they'll have a little window really low down to the ground to give you access to the cellar?
So, Alfredo, you waste no time. Make your way around the side of the garage and head towards the back of the house. And sure enough, a couple of yards from a quite flimsy-looking back door that you would assume leads into the kitchen is a small, dusty basement window, about a foot wide. You kneel over and grab the latch to test if it'll open, and of course, find that it is locked.
Okay, I'm going to remove my jacket. I'm going to put on my gloves. Bearing in mind I have a spot hidden of 45 and a lockpick of 50 and acrobatics of 70. Getting in through that window and going down, leaving a little trail and exposing myself to as little danger as possible.
Yeah, and I assume once you're in the house, you're just going to make your way to the front door and unlock it to let the other two in.
I would have preferred to have let them in the back door, if that's possible.
Since it's closer, yep. And while Alfredo's doing this, while he announces that he'll be back in a sec, he'll let you in through the back door, Boothby and Baxter, is there anything you'd like to do? Anything you'd like to check on the outside of the house? Or see if you can find another way in?
Yeah, Baxter's gonna have a squiz at the windows and see if there's anything notable, just kind of like that stands out in any of the rooms.
So go ahead, make a spot hidden for me, Baxter. And Boothby, you just following Baxter?
So, was the mailbox open when we saw it?
No, it's quite firmly shut. And as you kneel over to go to open it, Boothby, you find it so caked in rust that it doesn't seem to want to open. So if you would like to open it, I want you to make a strength check for me, please.
Might as well.
That is a 7 on the spot hidden, so that's a critical success.
Lovely. And Boothby?
48 to a 50 on strength.
48 to a 50. Nice. So Boothby, you smash the butt of the shotgun into the mailbox, making a dent, and then apply some elbow grease, and with a loud crack, the door of the mailbox snaps off. You peer inside, and the mailbox appears to be filled with a veritable horde of yellowed envelopes. You start pulling them out one by one, and they all appear to be bills and government correspondence addressed to a man by the name of Kenneth Ross. They've been in here for quite a long time, and The few of them that are stamped with dates on the back of the envelope show that they're at least a year old. Meanwhile, Baxter, most of the windows on the front that face the street, at least, are not boarded up. This would draw attention to the house, obviously. So you're able to just waltz up to the windows, press your face against the glass, and peer through. And although the windows aren't boarded up, it seems Castle and Telementers have gone to great efforts to try to obscure anything that could be seen from outside. They've covered the windows with thick curtains or pushed furniture in front of them, and you can only catch small glimpses of what awaits inside through the tiny little gaps in the curtains and the obstructions. It appears that the main area that they've been living would be the living room. Peering through the living room windows, you can see what look like a couple of sleeping bags laid out on floorboards and what looks like a gas-powered camp stove in the center of the room. Peering through the other windows into the bedroom and kitchen, you see darkness and dust, indicating that the house has apparently been abandoned for quite some time.
So that basement, by the way, can we see it, or can Baxter see it boarded up or chained up or anything like that, or is it just like a hatch?
So the one that Alfredo's trying to get to, it's a little foot-long window at the base of the house. Like, you know those windows that look up onto street level? There doesn't appear to be any access to the basement from outside normally, but Alfredo insists that he can get through that window, and with his very high locksmith and his acrobatics ability, he quickly opens the window. You just see him lean over, and then there's a click, and he slides the window up. It creaks loudly as he lifts it up, and then he just gives you a glance, telling you silently to wait, and drops down into the darkness beyond. So, Alfredo, as soon as you're in the basement, is there anything in particular that you would like to do?
Yeah, I'm gonna pull out my Tommy gun,
Yeah.
and I am going to just do a visual inspection, make sure I'm not gonna walk on a bear trap or anything, and I'm gonna then head upstairs and let these guys in.
Well, you appear to be lucky. They didn't leave a bear trap on the other side of the window. Your feet drop down onto firmament, and you unsling your Tommy gun looking around, and you realize that the basement is perhaps not where they were expecting someone to gain entry to their home. In contrast to what Baxter's seen through the windows into the living room and the kitchen, the basement is tidy, brightly lit, and neat. It looks like somebody has retrofitted the basement into a tidy little bedroom for children. There are 2 single beds, child-sized, and a small dresser for clothing. And one of the drawers on the dresser is hanging open, revealing neatly folded children's clothing. The front end of the room has a curtain closing off one corner, and peering behind it, you see a makeshift child-sized toilet made out of a little wooden bucket. Across the child's bedroom, there's a narrow staircase that seems to lead up to the kitchen.
Head up the staircase.
Yeah. So, Alfredo, you pass through the children's bedroom and creep up the stairs. And when you reach the heavy wooden door that leads to the kitchen and grab for the doorknob to open it, you find the door to the kitchen is locked from the other side, latched by Castle and Talamentes to keep the prisoners in the basement from escaping.
But there aren't any prisoners in the basement.
Yeah, but they've locked the door, perhaps out of habit.
Is it one of those locks that can be locked or unlocked from either side?
It doesn't look like it. In fact, as you go to open the door, you have a feeling that this is probably not a lock at all. It's probably a bolt on the other side of the door.
Is it a bolt that I can get to slide out of the way?
Depends how you'd like to try and do it.
Do I have any tools that are for such a purpose? Such as a nice strong magnet?
Make a luck check for me, please.
Alright, if you could roll that for me.
What is your luck?
My luck is currently only 54.
That's a 71. Would you like to push that?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. You quickly pat down your pockets, pull out your set of lockpicks, and swear under your breath as you've forgotten to replace your magnet. Looks like you might have to apply some elbow grease. Are you happy to try to force this door open?
Do I think I could cut the bolt?
Could try.
With one of my tools? Yeah, I'm going to try and cut the bolt with one of my tools.
Alright, so that will require a bit of finagling, so please tell me what your dexterity is.
80.
80? Sure. So I'm going to roll your 80 for you, and we're looking for a hard success. And that is a hard success of 23. You insert one of your tools into the gap between the door and the wall and jiggle it around until you feel the surprisingly thin bolt snap. And then of its own accord, the door springs open, swinging open, admitting you into the dark and dusty kitchen.
Cool.
You cross the kitchen to the back door and unlatch it, pushing it open, and you step out onto the back staircase and call out, "Hey, Boothby, Baxter, over here!"
Well, I might have actually said, over here.
Yeah, I know. I was trying to
I'm not
whisper,
sure
but
I'm
I
gonna
think my
shout
impression
their
isn't...
names.
Yeah.
I'm quite sure I'm not going to shout their names.
So it takes a few tries, but eventually Baxter, Boothby, you hear Alfredo calling for you. Hey, over here. Come through the kitchen door. And so you head through the back door into the kitchen. The kitchen is clearly in a state of disrepair. There's an old, battered dining table and 4 chairs, but they're collapsing under their own weight. The wood is splintered, rotting. There's a stove in the kitchen. It's a particularly ancient-looking stove with a wood burner, and there's a dilapidated icebox shoved in the corner between the stove and the wall. You notice an absolutely rank stench seeming to emanate from the icebox.
Baxter is going to regrettably pry it open.
Baxter, keeping an eye on the others, you creep over to the icebox and lift the lid And I would like Alfredo... Well, Alfredo's probably used to this, but I would like Boothby and Baxter to make power checks for me.
That's a failure for Baxter.
I got a
Baxter
29 against an 80.
Baxter, you're a detective, but you've never actually dealt with a case that would make you instinctually recognize the smell of death, the smell of decay. And so when you open the icebox and find it seemingly filled to the brim with unidentified cuts of maggot-infested, rotting meat, the stench hits you like a hammer, and you double over, lurching, gagging, and a few seconds later, a portion of your breakfast is splashed on the tip of your boots and on the dusty kitchen floor.
Baxter's going to steel himself and take a picture.
Yeah,
It's important for him to document all of this.
Go ahead, make me an arts and crafts check. Boothby, you're also pretty taken aback by what's in the icebox, but you are always training yourself to always be stoic and manly, so you turn away and gag a little bit and then suppress the reflex, quickly composing yourself.
That is a regular pass for Baxter.
Yeah. Quickly pull out your camera, prime the flash, standing over the icebox, and manage to take a photo that you think allows the ambient light from the open kitchen door to illuminate what's in the icebox. With your spot hidden, Baxter, as you're trying to get the correct angle for the photograph, you notice what appears to be a yellowed piece of paper wedged into a little crack in the side of the icebox, buried under a couple layers of rotting meat.
Once again, regrettably, Baxter tries to fish it out with his fingers.
Feeling your insides churn, you hold your breath and steel yourself as Boothby and Alfredo watch. Stick your hands into the meat, and it feels like you're sticking your hands into a tub of cold slime. You hope that feeling of something moving, squirming against your skin is not maggots, and you fish out the note. You unfold it and find written in messy handwriting a single sentence. It says, "For the garage."
Does it look like the note was attached to anything at some point?
No, it just looks like it was just stuck in the icebox. Maybe left by either Castle or Telementers as a reminder to the other.
Not trying to be obvious, but Alfredo wants to have a bit of a look at the meat because, well, Baxter and Boothby aren't going to spot telltale things like fingertips or earlobes. I'm trying to see if there's anything that indicates that this isn't beef or pork.
You can make me either a medicine check, a natural world check, or an education check. But the education check will be a hard check.
Good.
Medicine I have 0-1. What was the other one?
Natural
world
or
I'm going to make education.
Alrighty.
Education. 60.
Can Boothby help?
Yeah, Boothby can help because he's steeled
Boothby
himself.
hunts, and I think
Boothby does hunt.
He might be able to help in that situation.
So Boothby, because you hunt, I'll ask you to make either a survival check or a firearms check.
I'll do firearms. 29 against a 68.
Lovely. And Alfredo? Oh yeah,
I
I'll
need-
roll for you. Yeah, I forgot I'm rolling for you. So that's a hard pass for Alfredo. So Alfredo kneels over, seeming to sniff the meat. He snorts and he says, I don't see any fingertips or lips or eyelids or anything of that sort. And then Boothby, you're able to confirm, although this meat is decaying quite rapidly, you recognize that these were, at some point, choice cuts of venison.
Boothby lets out a massive sigh of relief. It just goes, oh, thank God.
Downstairs is a room set up for kitties.
Baxter's eyes go wide and he hurries down the stairs, winding his
Yeah.
camera to the next frame.
Yeah, you burst down into the basement and see the tidy little room with the 2 child-sized beds and the dresser filled with neatly folded children's clothes. And as you whip out your camera to take a photo, I would first ask you to make a sanity check for me, please, Baxter.
That is a pass.
It is a pass. You lose 1 point of sanity as you glimpse the little boy's outfit that's folded hanging out of the drawer and notice that it's identical to the one that your son was dressed in when you last spoke to him. You shudder.
Ooh, that cuts deep.
You shudder, unhooking your camera and taking a photo. And the basement's quite dimly lit. There's only one source of light, so I'm going to ask for a hard success to capture this scene.
Even with the flash?
Even with the flash.
Well, that's lucky because that is a 16. That's a hard pass.
Yeah. The flash bulb goes off and you snap a photo of each of the beds and the clothing and then one of the whole room in general. And you shudder. Father inside you suddenly unnerved. Return to the others upstairs in the kitchen. Tell them you've snapped some photos of the kiddie's bedroom. And now you decide where you'd like to go next. From here in the kitchen, there's a door leading out into the living room. But there's also another that seems to move into a nearby bedroom. And beyond the bedroom, you could see a door leading into the garage.
Bedroom.
Yeah, I was going to say bedroom, definitely.
Yeah. Quickly peering into the living room, you see that there's nothing much there. It's mostly empty. There's a single shelf left that's used to block up one of the windows. But aside from that, it's bare, save for Castle and Telementer's sleeping bags and a portable camp stove in the center. And so you lead the others into the bedroom. The bedroom contains 2 narrow single bed frames without dressers and a single 4-drawer dresser. Everything else that may have once been valuable appears to have already been cleared out. Opening the dresser, you find the top 2 drawers containing a few pieces of dirty, rumpled men's clothing that, by the look of it, hasn't been worn in quite a long time. And
Well,
so,
judging...
yep,
Sorry.
go Boothby.
Boothby's gonna say, well, judging by the mail left for Mr. Voss, I seem to think that he might not be with us anymore.
Yeah, and you start to get the sense that maybe maybe this house doesn't actually belong to Castle Intellamentes. So what happened to Mr. Ross then? Doesn't seem to be anything of value in the bedroom, so are you ready to just move on into the garage?
Definitely. Baxter would be wary of the fact that he doesn't know when they will be coming back, and it could be at any moment. That's how
Yeah.
it always goes.
Is
Quick
he
question.
going... Yep, go Boothby.
Oh, sorry. Does Boothby have his shotgun on him? Because if not,
I would presume as soon as he saw Alfredo unsling his Tommy gun, he took that as a good sign that he should be armed as well.
okay, good. Because he's probably gonna want that for the garage, I feel.
So, Baxter, do you unsling your baseball bat?
Yep, and he grips it very hard by the handle, uses the tip of it to push open the door to the garage.
Yeah. Boothby's bearing his shotgun, and Alfredo, I presume your Tommy gun is at your hip and ready to go?
Yeah, he's eyeballing the baseball bat, and he says, after we're done here, I'm going to take you and get you outfitted proper, right? Okay? And head through the door.
Yeah, do what you might. Baxter cannot shoot straight. He doesn't even have the firearm skill.
Baxter presses the tip of the baseball bat against the door, which is thankfully unlocked. You hear a click, and then the door slowly creaks as you push it open. You step through the doorway into the garage. The garage is large enough to hold one vehicle, with enough room for a person to squeeze by on one side. There doesn't appear to be a vehicle. The kidnappers have left a stained white tarp on the floor, which may have formerly been used to conceal their truck. The walls are hung with old garden tools, and there's a workbench in the rear covered with various rusty old tools and a thick metal toolbox. And next to the workbench, there's what you immediately think is a crate with another dirty white tarp draped over it. And then you've taken no more than one step into the garage when suddenly that crate-shaped object under the tarp shakes. You hear the sound of rattling metal. The sound of laboured breathing begins to emanate through the tiny garage. And whatever's under the tarp begins to tremble. Metal rattling as it registers your presence in the room.
Well, I think Boothby's gonna try to use his gun to kind of like adjust to the tarp, like just to get some distance and try to take the tarp off of presumably the cage that this thing's being kept in.
Baxter's going to help with the baseball bat.
The baseball bat. So as you see Baxter and Boothby creeping towards the tarp, Alfredo, what do you do?
Oh, I'm scanning around on the side and up above us.
Yeah. Side.
I'm making sure we don't get attacked from the side or from surprise.
There's no windows in the garage, and the roof is quite low, so you're quite satisfied that you're not going to be ambushed or blindsided. So, are you happy to just stand back and have your Tommy gun trained on the shaking thing while the other two lift up the tarp?
Yes.
You hear Alfredo cock his gun as Boothby and Baxter creep forwards, sticking the tips of their weapons, catching them under the rim of the tarp, and then you look at each other, take a moment to compose yourselves, and then nod, and with a single jerk, lift up your weapons, throwing the tarp off. And I would like everyone present to make a sand check, please.
That is us.
Pass.
And Alfredo?
Can you roll mine for me?
Yes, what's your sanity?
Absolutely incorrectly, 76.
Well, you pass with 67, so all three of you lose 1d3 san. As you lift up the tarp, you quickly register a small iron-barred cage underneath, rattling furiously as its occupant breathes heavily, excited, trying to get to you. It's a dog, or at one point, it was a dog. Its fur has fallen out, replaced with deep blue, putrid, fleshy growths, its eyes and face waterlogged. Strange, noxious, white-coloured discharge dripping off its face and angles like snotty stalactites. Its waterlogged eyes seem almost like they can't see anything, and yet it knows you are there. And now that you've pulled off the tarp, it opens its mouth, lets out a growl, and throws the full force of its body against the cage door. The door bursts open, and the waterlogged dog thing creeps out, growling, breathing heavily, its airways clogged with saline. Reactions. 1d3 sanity each.
Boothby's gonna shoot.
Boothby's gonna shoot. Baxter?
He just falls back on his ass.
Falls back on his ass. How much sand did you all lose?
1.
1 for Boothby.
1 for me as well.
Yep, Alfredo.
I was gonna get you to roll a D3.
Oh yes, yeah, that's right. Sorry, I forget. That's 2 for you, Alfredo. There's a moment
the
of
whole notion
shock.
of a dog being tortured, it upsets him. It brings a tear to his eye.
Yeah. He feels his eyes beginning to mist as his heart skips a beat, and the gun trembles in his hand as he hesitates for a moment. Baxter sort of lets out a cry. Ah! Falls backwards onto his butt while Boothby, biting his lip, drawing blood, raises the shotgun, cocks it, and tightens the trigger. What is your dex, everyone?
Baxter's is 6.
Baxter's is 50. Boothby?
50.
50. And Alfredo?
80.
80. So, Alfredo, you get the chance to go first.
Yeah, he's not going to allow the thing to hit at the or Baxter. He's just going to put a few rounds in it.
Yeah. So, go ahead and make me a firearms check.
Okay, his Tommy gun skill is 60, if you want to have a roll.
Yeah. That's a 55. The dog has no idea what's coming. You hear the sound of its talon-like claws clattering on the cracked concrete of the garage, and as it straightens itself, slowly eyeing Baxter and Boothby, you take hold of the trembling Tommy gun and pull the trigger, rattling off a barrage of rounds. Rat-a-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat. And that's going to be a hit, because the dog rolled an 82 on its dodge. It's got no idea what's coming. And you're quick enough on the draw that you were able to hit it center mass. And so that's going to be 2d6 plus 4 damage, which I will roll. Seven points of damage. 3 of those absorbed by the fleshy, waterlogged body. The bullets hit the fleshy growths, popping them like cysts, and white pus streams forth. The rest of the bullets tear away the soaking flesh, peeling it away like paper, revealing rotten flesh, yellowed bones underneath. And yet the dog seems to register no pain at all. It has a dex of 70, so it goes next. And seeing that Baxter's the one on the floor, it turns towards him, growls, baring its teeth, and then lunges forwards. And Baxter, you can make either a fighting check if you want to try to hit it with your baseball bat, or a dodge check to scramble out of the way.
Baxter's just going to dodge. He's not taking any chances. This dog's scary as shit.
Yeah, go ahead and roll me a dodge check then.
That is a 45. That is almost a hard pass, but just a regular pass.
Regular pass, here we go. So the dog's going to roll its fighting check, and that's going to be a hard pass of 30, beating your regular pass. You see that the dog's aiming for you, and quickly jolt yourself back into reality. But you take control of your faculties a fraction of a second too late. You tense your body trying to roll out of the way, but before you know it, the full weight of the dog's body is upon you, pinning you to the ground. It opens its mouth, and its breath is the stench of decaying meat as it sinks its teeth into your body as you struggle, jeering your neck out of the way to save your life. Let's see how you go. It's going to deal 2d6 damage here. That is 8 points of damage that Baxter takes as the dog begins to violently maul him.
Oh dear. If we didn't heal up from the first session, Baxter only has 8 health. Did we heal up from the very first session at the lighthouse?
Sure did. It's been several months.
Cool. Then he's on 3 health, yeah.
He's on 3 health. I would like Baxter to make a con check for me.
He convinces the dog that he's in fact a magician. No, that's 83. That's a failure on the Constitution.
83. Baxter lets out a scream, trying desperately to fend the dog off, poking it with his baseball bat as it mauls him. You watch as it tears his vest to shreds before your eyes, sinks its teeth into his chest, and rips the skin away, baring the flesh underneath, filleting him before your eyes. The pain overwhelms Baxter, and he sinks limp into a dead faint. You have a major wound, Baxter, and it's not looking good. But Boothby, you're up.
Is Baxter unconscious as well, then?
Yeah, Baxter's unconscious. The con check. Yeah.
Boothby's gonna shoot.
Boothby's gonna shoot. Make me a firearms check.
43 against a 68.
43 against 68. And the dog gets 88 on its dodge. It's viciously attacking Baxter, flaying him, tearing off strips of skin, chewing them up, growling. You step forwards, Boothby, cock the shotgun, and bang! The shotgun shells slam into the dog's side, ripping through its flesh and shattering its ribs. And that will be 4d6 damage, because you are at close range.
18.
18. The dog's fleshy growths absorb 3 of that, but that's still 15 points of damage. And it suddenly looks as if half of the dog is atomized before your eyes. It seems to explode outwards from within, showering you and Baxter with shards of blood and bone, and the dog just slides off Baxter's unconscious form onto the ground, moving no more, blood and noxious smelling pus beginning to pool around it.
You'll better get Baxter to a hospital, or he's gonna haunt you.
Baxter's bleeding profusely. You're pretty sure you can see raw bone under some of the bite marks, and his breathing is laboured.
Well, we better get this guy off to the doctor, to a doc, or I don't think he's going to be doing too well.
You could try to stabilise him, perhaps, with some first aid.
I
have a first aid of 40.
Are you willing to try and treat Baxter, knowing that if you fail, you could make things worse and push him closer to the jaws of death?
I
mean, it's not like you can get any better if you mess up, so he's either dead or he's not.
From what I can see, is it a case of we should just get him to the hospital, or should I try and stabilize him?
He's bleeding pretty heavily. If you're going to get him to the hospital, you need to leave immediately. Forget checking the garage for any clues. You got to get Baxter out of there. But if you stabilize him, you might buy yourself some time.
Yeah, I don't think Eduardo has seen any sign that this guy is a no good bum, and therefore it's just as likely he's due to go to heaven. So, yeah, Alfredo is going to motion for Bixby to get him under the arms, and Alfredo's going to grab his legs, and we're going to get him to the car and get to the hospital as fast as possible.
Yep.
Boothby, Alfredo is going to be snapping off orders. He's not meaning to be a dick or anything about it. Are you going to cooperate and do that?
Boothby, are you more interested in saving Baxter or finding clues?
Well, the detective Loper in him wants to find clues, but it would kind of suck if someone died, so...
Yeah.
And it's not like he can just throw the keys to Alfredo, because that wouldn't quite work out physically to get him to drive the car.
Yeah. So, you quickly rush up to Alfredo and help him hoist Baxter up, holding him between the two of you, and Baxter feeling your body jolted along is enough to stir you to consciousness. You open your eyes and feel intense pain shooting through every molecule of your body. It feels as if someone has sliced your skin straight off the bone. As they're dragging you out of the garage, Baxter, I'd like you to make a spot hidden check for me. I'll give you the chance to find one clue, the most important one.
That is another critical success on the spot hidden.
Critical
That's
success.
his favorite skill.
As you're jostled between Alfredo's shoulder and Boothby's shoulder, and they're half dragging you, half guiding you out of the garage, your bleary, blood-caked eyes take in the sight of the dead, broken dog thing and the workbench behind it, and there, jutting out of the tip of the toolbox, you see a shred of paper. There! You gasp out to the others, jolting your head in the direction of the workbench, and they stop for a moment. And Alfredo, Boothby, takes you a few seconds to realize that Baxter's trying to tell you that he can see a piece of paper inside the toolbox.
Grab the toolbox.
Yeah.
I was about to say Boothby just grabs the whole thing. There's no time.
Boothby just grabs the toolbox by the handle, and seeing that they've got the clue is enough to set you at ease for now, Baxter. So you let out a sigh of relief and grit your teeth, bearing the pain. And you're not sure how. It's all fuzzy, but seemingly a few moments later, you're coming to in the back seat of Boothby's Phantom. You can feel the road underneath you, the car bumping as it speeds back towards downtown Arkham, towards St. Mary's Teaching Hospital. The events of the garage encounter quickly flood through your mind, Baxter. And now you're awake enough to process them. You see Boothby hunched over the steering wheel, driving like a man possessed, while Alfredo sits beside you in the back seat, watching you with a look of genuine concern on his face. And do you say anything as you suddenly realize where you are and what's happened?
I think Baxter's gonna crack wise. He kind of hucks up a bit of blood and spits it onto the seat and apologizes to Boothby and says, "My dad kid wanted a dog. Glad I said no."
Alfredo?
Sorry.
Yep, Boothby, go.
Boothby, upon hearing something wet hit the back seat of his car, grits his teeth so hard that you can basically hear them crack. But he's like, glad you're doing okay back there, buddy.
Meanwhile, Alfredo is just hunched over, clutching a set of rosary beads and a cross, speaking the last rites in Latin. Resquiescat in pace. Requiescat in pace. He says, passing his hands over the rosary beads. And Boothby drives as fast as he can towards St. Mary's Teaching Hospital with Baxter's life hanging in the balance. Alt, are you quite happy for me to say that your life depends on how fast Boothby can get you to the hospital?
Please.
Yeah.
That sounds exciting.
Boothby, let's do it. Make a drive check.
Fuck. I'm gonna
No
push
pressure.
that.
Oh god.
28 to a 40.
28 to a 40. Baxter, it seems to all happen in an instant for you as you drift in and out of consciousness. You're not aware of how fast Boothby is driving, how he occasionally, only occasionally, goes over the speed limit. as he weaves in between the early afternoon traffic and screams down the main streets of downtown Arkham until finally you arrive, and the next thing you know, you're out of the car once again, hoisted between Alfredo and Boothby as they carry you up the long concrete path towards the teaching hospital on the edge of Miskatonic University's vast campus. And as you approach the double doors of the hospital, you realize you're probably going to pull through. You let out a sigh of relief as you let the unconsciousness take over and nature relieves you of the pain. It takes the better part of an hour to make sure that Baxter is being taken care of, to get him into the crowded waiting room, to get the attention of the triage nurse and follow her down the hallway into the emergency room, to stand by as the doctors perform emergency first aid, announce that he's stabilized, and then you make sure you do not leave until you see that he's safely checked in for the night, safe and sound, in Ward 3 on the easternmost wing of the first floor. And it's already close to late afternoon when you find yourself leaving the hospital. It's not until you're finally back in the car that you turn your attention to the toolbox and the note. Boothby works on opening the toolbox while Alfredo does his very best to clean up the mess in the back seat, wiping off the blood and the gunk from Baxter. Finally, you manage to get the toolbox open, Boothby. You extract the piece of paper and head over to Alfredo. Tap him on the shoulder and get his attention as you slide it in front of his face. I'm going to put a picture of it in Owlbear Rodeo for you. The one clue that you're able to snatch on your way out of the house. Hopefully, it's enough for you to go on. It's a scrap of paper in fairly neat handwriting. It reads, "Glad to hear you have been successful with CDA. Try to obtain a second one, as we discussed, as soon as possible. Wentorf and I hope to visit soon. We'll have to stop at Falcon Point to check in on the others. Make sure none get in the way. H. Snowden." And with that, we will cross over to the other group of Ruth, Connie, and Smythe. As you watch Boothby's Phantom roll out of the parking lot and onto the streets, Lord Smythe directs Ruth and Connie to his own vehicle. His expensive and, in America right now, very exotic Morris motor. And of course, your faithful driver and manservant is waiting for you as you approach Lord Smythe, leaning against the driver's side door. "Oi, my lord. Had a good sleep, have you? Ready to get back to work, then?"
I expect so, Colin. We'll be having company for the drive today.
"Oh,
You get the door for them, would you?"
"Two fine ladies. Not often I have the pleasure of driving such delicate creatures, ma'am," he says to Ruth as he pulls open the back door.
Were this a normal British man, I think she would be fairly charmed, but this thing, putting her on edge after everything else.
Yeah. He seems a little creepy, to be honest. In any other situation, you'd probably just see him as a harmless Cockney boy, but he seems to be utterly transfixed on you in particular. Connie, you don't really notice it. He holds the door open for you, just as he does with Ruth, and declares once again that it's his pleasure to make your acquaintance and that you'll be riding with him today. And please bear with me. I'm new to these streets. I don't know where all the potholes are, so please hold on to your britches and bear in mind that I don't intend for you to jostle around. And as he slides into the driver's seat and looks over at Lord Smythe, he asks, "Where to, me lord?"
To the asylum.
Arkham Institute. Right. I suppose you's following up on that Danny Ames thing, ain't you?
Well, we're certainly not making a deposit. But the night is young.
He nods, ignites the ignition, and begins to reverse out of the parking lot. And as he looks over his shoulder to check that the main street outside is free, Ruth, you notice his gaze lingering on you yet again, his eyes narrowing as he seems to study every pore, every line of your face.
You know, I think that Ruth would comment on this, actually. She just says, hi there.
"Hello," says Colin. I'm sorry, miss. Was there something I could do for you?"
Shut the fuck up, Paradox. God damn it. It's the fucking hotel licking man voice.
Yes, I'm
It's
sorry.
killing me.
I know.
Dude, seriously.
There's a slight variation, but yeah, the voice is definitely off-putting.
Oh, you motherfuckers, don't push gifts in chat, I will explode. Okay. Ruth just says, I was just wondering if you, fuck you, like...
So, for context for the listeners, Elias has just put a gif of Lickitung, the Pokemon, licking very, very fast.
Very fast. I'm not gonna do the voice. Ruth just says, did you see what you needed to? Something like that. Fuck.
Oh, do you think I was staring at you? My apologies, my lady. I was just looking out the back there to see if it's safe to reverse out. And
Dear
Connie,
lady, Colin
Connie
has been a trusted manservant of mine for years. I assure you, his intentions are harmless.
No, it's alright. I'm used to people taking a good look anyway.
You mention it, he says as he puts his eyes firmly on the road again and reverses out onto Pickman Street and begins to negotiate the early morning downtown traffic. Now that I think of it, your face is a bit familiar, my lady. You wouldn't happen to be interested in theatre, would you?
Oh, well, that's much better. Yes, you might have seen one of my shows. Have you seen any productions of Othello lately?
Right. I'm thinking back on it now, and I think last time I was stateside, I caught Macbeth down at the local theatre. I did, you know. My lord says, as a honest, red-blooded Englishman, I have to get in touch with the classics of British literature, so I caught some of the bard I did, and you look remarkably like Lady Macbeth did in that play.
You might be quite right. I think that was me.
You
Wasn't that
didn't.
lovely?
The scene where you're trying to scrub your hands. Oh, it was raw emotion, your performance. I remember it now. Please, I apologise if I came across as off-putting. I just, well, it's not often I have the pleasure of escorting a bona fide celebrity in my humble vehicle. He looks over at Lord Smythe and says, no offence, me lord, you are...
None taken.
His lordship don't exactly count as a celebrity in the
No, it's
traditional
not.
sense.
That's
I'm
quite
not sure
well.
I do either.
And it's a rare lady who can bring true emotion to out damned spots so well.
I never did get it out.
And yet, as he quietens down and fully devotes himself to the task of driving, Connie and Smythe, you notice that it didn't seem as if Colin was staring at Ruth at all. He really was just looking over his shoulder, checking to make sure it was safe to turn out onto the street.
Well, Lord Smythe knows exactly why Colin would have little interest in an attractive woman.
So, you are not driving, so I will nominate one of you to go ahead and make a navigate check to see if you can help Colin get to the Arkham Institute.
Does anyone have any points in it?
Best I've got is a 20.
I've got 10, so that's better.
Alright.
What's this navigate? Yeah, I'm 10 as well.
Navigate. Yep. So Lord Smythe.
Falls to Lord Smythe, who really should have put more into this, but that's alright. Well, he's on British time. He's not really in a hurry. Where's the dice roller? Here's the dice roller. Roll 100. 46 is a failure, and I see no reason to push it.
So Smythe pulls out the map of Arkham from under his seat, unfolds it, and starts grumbling. Oh, I can't make sense of these imperial measurements. It says 2 miles. What is this in metric? These backwards people. And by the time you actually locate Arkham Sanitarium on the map and help Colin find the way to it, you've wasted quite a bit of time. It takes the better part of an hour before finally you're speeding past the town square onto Whately Street in northern Arkham, on the other side of the Miskatonic River, where the Arkham Sanitarium lies right on the city's outskirts. An old American Gothic turn-of-the-century manor house, a New England classic, perched at the summit of a hill that casts its shadow over everything around it like a sleeping giant. There's a long cobblestone path wending its way from the street up the hill towards the manor house, and when you finally reach the top of the hill, you find yourselves blocked by a thick wrought iron gate. There's a little copper speaker attached to the brick wall beside the gate and a red button, and you can just make out faded lettering that reads, "For visitors," above the button.
So what exactly are we telling them when we arrive? Because we haven't exactly
Oh.
booked ahead.
No, we need to see Daniel Ames. And I suppose it's on me that I didn't call ahead. But we will need a reason to see him. Are we technically deputized by the police? I've quite forgotten.
Well, Ruth was there, and Ruth, it seemed pretty clear to you that your deputies in all but name. The chief of police did essentially say that you're doing his work for him while you conduct this investigation.
That could be an in. You could persuade him that we'd like to speak with the Ames in relation to an ongoing case. And I could offer perhaps a touch of bribery if it comes down to it. A small donation to their well-being, but that's something better discussed in office. I leave it to you as to how best to get our foot in the door here.
Well, you better think fast, says Colin as he leans out of the window and slams his palm on the red button. Static bursts
Colin,
from the...
How dare I?
Static bursts from the speaker as a garbled voice says, "Alright, got no appointments on today. State your business."
God, what was his name again? Daniel something?
Daniel Ames.
Daniel Ames, yeah. We're deputies here on behalf of the sheriff to speak with Daniel Ames. It is of great importance. Not all wrong. But...
Police? Sure. Go ahead and roll me, Connie, a persuade check. Or you can go for fast talk if you want to try to embellish your position a bit.
On that note,
Yep.
we ran into this the other day. Apparently, I have 75 in persuade, and you suggested I replace it to fast talk for being an actor.
You're an actor, yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure yet.
75, holy crap.
In fact, with that in mind, I'll ask Connie to make a persuade, and Ruth, if you'd like to suddenly perk up and, employ those acting skills, what would you say to the man on the speaker?
So what was our story, sorry?
So apparently you're saying you're deputized and you're doing official police business coming to speak to Danny Ames.
Yeah, okay. Helena's all of a sudden quite stiff, and there's a sort of masculine note to her voice. Oh my god, I keep saying Helena. Ruth is quite stiff, masculine element to her voice. She's not a Malkavian. And she says, "It's very serious business. I'd appreciate it if you could cooperate."
So go ahead, make a fast talk check for me, Ruth. And sure. Connie makes a persuade.
Yeah, that's a pass.
Pass? And what did Connie get?
That is a critical pass.
Critical pass.
6 against 50.
Yeah. Alright, so I'm going to count that as 3 passes, 3 successes, so you'll get some extra stuff in a minute. There's silence for a moment, and then the voice comes through. "I didn't hear nothing about that, but yeah, I suppose the doctor will want to speak to you. Take it up with him, letting you through." And then you hear the whirring of machinery as the wrought iron gates start to slowly slide open, the entire earth seeming to rumble as they do. Colin nods and pilots the car up the remainder of the driveway, coming to a graceful stop in the courtyard in front of the manor house. The estate's grounds have been refitted to serve as a quiet gathering place for the patients and the staff. As you exit the vehicle, you see a couple of orderlies clad in green scrubs walking with the patient. It doesn't look as if the patients are enjoying their time. It looks as if the orderlies are walking them in much the same way as you would walk a dog giving them exercise, guiding them through the immaculately maintained gardens and courtyards and gazebos of the old manor estate. All of the patients seem to look on listlessly, their faces neutral, devoid of expression. You cross the courtyard and Lord Smythe steps up and pushes open the thick double doors, and you step into what was once the entrance hall of the manor. It's now been repurposed into a sort of lobby/waiting room. There's a long wooden counter, a row of upholstered leather chairs, and a duty roster indicating what doctors and nurses are on duty today and where they can be found. There's a bored-looking, bald man lazing back in the chair behind the counter. As he sees you enter, he quickly jolts upright, pulls himself into a seating position, and clears his throat. Okay, so I spoke to the doctors, you made your way up, and, well, he wasn't keen on speaking to anybody, police or not, but when you dropped the name Daniel Ames, he seemed to pay particular attention. So that got me curious. Daniel Ames has been here for years, and no one's come to see him pretty much since he was admitted. So, call me curious. What suddenly prompts three strangers claiming to be deputized by the police to come and say they want to speak to a shell-shocked young boy who thinks he's a dog or some sort of ghoul?
Relevance to an ongoing investigation is the short and sum of it. What did you say your name was? And Lord Smythe takes out a pad of paper and starts writing, well, kind of looking over...
My name's Miles Johnson. I'm one of the junior orderlies here. Mostly means I man the reception counter and ask what people are doing at the gate and stuff.
So it's the junior orderly's place to ask questions about an ongoing investigation, then, not the doctor's. I see. Says Lord Smythe.
I would
notes.
I would like Lord Smythe to go ahead and make for me either an appearance check or an intimidate check.
Well, appearance is a bit more, but intimidate's 40, and I can't resist flexing just a bit. Let's see if I'm lucky. But if I'm not, then I've got two social mavens here to help. 74, and I don't feel the need to push it. There's other ways 74. This can be salvaged.
Well, I know it's idle gossip, but surely you could see why I'd be interested. I mean, an ongoing investigation. Ain't nobody was interested in that boy when he was found. I can't imagine why they'd be interested in him now, especially, with all the stories and with the boy's history and all. Thinks he's some sort of goblin.
Yes, well, it appears that his past may somehow relate to this ongoing case, and that is why we need to speak to him as soon as we can. And as it is...
Wait. Something seems to dawn on him. Ongoing case. You talking about that missing baby, right? The son of the electronics guy. Well, how could Danny Ames have anything to do with that? Well, you know what? It ain't my place to ask, as this gentleman here so rightly pointed out, but at this he peers past Smythe at Connie and Ruth, and he says, on account of two of your dames and all, I gotta advise that, speaking of Daniel Ames, ain't exactly gonna be a, nice, easy, meet-over brunch sort of affair, you understand?
I'm sure we can handle ourselves, sir.
Just warning you, this is a boy who, well, he's so far gone that, you shouldn't apply any speck of human logic to anything he says or does, and, just be careful, because he's got the mind of an animal, and, he'll do his best to try to get under your skin, okay? Alright, so Dr. Ephraim is in his office. Head through that door behind me. Head down to the end of the hallway, and the doctor's offices are on the left there, and you'll see Dr. Ephraim's name on the door. I must ask, while you're here as guests of the sanitarium, please refrain from speaking to the patients unless you are accompanied by a doctor or orderly, so that we don't, aggravate them. And, no flash photography, please.
Wouldn't dream of it, dear lad.
Well, off you go then, he says, gesturing towards the door. You thank him for his time, and you step through the door, and a few minutes later you're standing in front of a wooden door with a nameplate reading Dr. Walter Ephraim, head of staff. And there's a brass knocker in the shape of a lion's head. It seems that he's commandeered the manor's old private study as his personal office. Smythe is the one who grabs the knocker and raps it against the door. And then you hear a voice from inside. Come in, come in. You open the door and step into the wide-open, welcoming study that's been turned into an office. It still looks like a study. There's plush carpet, there's a fire roaring in the fireplace. One of the walls is covered from bottom to top in a vast bookcase filled with hundreds of tomes on medicine, psychiatry, and folklore. Dr. Ephraim himself is a middle-aged man with long silver hair. He's wearing a tightly fitted doctor's coat, and his eyes, magnified by his circular spectacles, almost make you think of an insect. Please, take a seat, he says, gesturing to the chairs by the small reading table in the middle of the room. And then he gets up from his desk, snaps the book shut that he's reading, and joins you, taking a seat by the coffee table. And I understand you're here under the auspices of Chief Nichols of the Arkham Police. Now, I've made no bones about what I think of his methods, and I would really appreciate if he stopped sending his detectives to rile up my patients, but you said you'd like to speak to Daniel Ames. That name bought you the time of day with me, but if I'm going to let you speak to the boy, I'm going to need to know exactly why you want to.
Well, we wish to, because there are similarities in this case. There are children missing, and we believe that the specter of the past may be rearing its head once more. And
Well,
that
there
the
are...
sole survivor of a similar incident in the past may offer some insight.
Well, sure. I can see the similarities, but Danny Ames has been a patient here for 2.5 years now. That was all ages ago, so I don't know how it could be related to what's going on with the poor baby Anderson. You see, I have to be frank with you. He leans forwards. Silent for a moment, he meets the eyes of all three of you, one by one, and then he says, Daniel Ames is not well. It will be decades, if at all, before he is a functioning human being again. I would liken his current mental state to something of an abused animal. And I really struggle to think what information he would be able to provide for you if you're even lucky enough to find him in a lucid enough state to pry it from his lips.
Then let us chance the experiment and see what comes of it.
Well, I hate to be the type of guy who questions credentials, but neither of the three of you look like you're trained in psychiatry or psychology, and quite frankly, I'm going to say that I don't think you're at all capable of even being able to negotiate a conversation with the boy.
Okay, so I'm going to pull a bit of a gambit here.
Yep.
Ruth has 85 psychology. So she is going to just on the fly pull something out, like making a quick snap assessment of this man's character to see if she can sort of convince him that she understands the human mind.
Using the Freudian method in direct quotes, maybe, I don't know.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Go ahead and roll it.
That's 50 against 85.
Yeah, so you get the impression that this doctor is the type of guy who takes his job incredibly seriously. You do not get the impression that he's the type of doctor who genuinely wants to help his patients, but he wants to make sure that everything is done by the book, and he's the type of guy who thinks that only he is capable of getting the job done right. And with that reading of him, you're able to summon some old refrains about the human mind and little bits of Freud and Jung that you've read as part of studying for various character roles. And it's enough. It seems to pique his attention, and he smiles and he says, Well, aren't you a surprise? A pretty young thing like you seem quite well versed in the literature, at least. So, I will... Go ahead.
I'm informed.
You certainly seem to be informed, but being informed and negotiating the mind of a mad person are two different things. So, I'll simply ask, if you are to speak to Daniel Ames, what questions will you ask of him? You see, there are several things you can say and several things you can't. There are several things that, when brought up, will trigger the boy's more repressed behavioral instincts.
Would one of those things be Father Snowden?
He raises an eyebrow. Snowden? I do not know where you heard that name, but indeed, mention of the name Snowden will certainly pique the boy's attention. It'll get him to open up, I think, but you also have to keep in mind that if you get him to open up, you're dragging him closer and closer to the trauma that he's got buried deep inside his psyche. And if you keep him in that state for just long enough, it will boil over.
I see.
So you suspect that this Snowden character is responsible for the disappearance of the Anderson boy?
No theory can yet be ruled out, sir.
What about you? He narrows his eyes at Connie. Please, I don't mean any offense, but you've come walking in here. You're You've got all sorts of talismans and bits of jewelry dangling around your neck, and you've got the look of some sort of psychic or mystic or folklorist or something like that. And I don't want any of your mumbo-jumbo trying to spook the kid.
No, no, of course not. Here's a comforting hand to hopefully help with being able to talk to him. I'm sure assuming a softer touch might help bring the boy out of his shell a bit more.
You to go ahead and roll a persuade for me, please, Connie.
Okay, that's a success.
Success. Okay, but I warn you again to watch what you say in front of the boy. Now, you've already brought up the name Snowden, and so the fact that you brought somebody who's dressed like a mystic piqued my attention. I'm sure you're familiar with the outlandish stories about Snowden and the circumstances of Daniel Ames's disappearance, are you not?
We have some idea, but if there's anything more you'd care to add in, well, yes.
Well, like I said, the boy's been a patient here for 2.5 years. He was found staggering through the woods northeast of Arkham, a couple miles from Ipswich. He was reunited with his parents, and he was kept at home for 6 months until the accidental death of his mother. We say accidental, it was ruled an attack by a wild animal. His mother was found with her face near gnawed off. Patches of her skin clawed away like some sort of dog or bear got her. Except she was found in the backyard of their home, and Danny was catatonic, refused to speak of what had happened, so his father had him placed in the hospital, and he was declared a ward of the state. Now, since then, I've been able to get him to open up about the fact that there is some connection with his disappearance and this Snowden. And when you get him to talk about Snowden, he mentions things that are, well, it's hard to tell if they're the ravings of a paranoid schizophrenic or there's some element of truth to them, but the rumors about Snowden himself suggest that he was involved in quite strange things bordering on occultism. That's part of the reason why he was removed from the church, I hear. He had quite a mind for the occult, and they say that some of the children that were undergoing tutoring in religion from him were exposed to these occult concepts, and so I spent a lot of time working under the theory that perhaps Daniel Ames is the failed victim of some sort of cult brainwashing, some sort of bizarre mumbo-jumbo that broke his mind. His condition reminds me of what you would expect to see from a child who has been sexually abused, but we could never find any signs that had happened, and indeed Daniel vehemently denied that Snowden had done any such thing. And so I guess I'm trying to say I don't put a lot of stock in those rumors. Whatever happened to that boy was completely mundane, and I'm not exactly sure I like that Chief Nichols has decided to send along someone who's very clearly into all that stuff to question the boy.
when one is attempting to find the cause of things, it helps to rule out everything possible. And furthermore, you just admitted that you suspect cult activity, as do we. It matters not whatever folder role they believe. It helps to have it identified.
So you think somebody's snatching kids, trying to, what, brainwash them into some sect?
It does seem like a possibility that needs to be explored.
Look, you've piqued my attention, I'll give you that, and I would like the three of you to go ahead and roll appearance checks for me. You've made a decent impression on him, but let's see if he's able to make up his mind whether he's going to divulge this final bit of info to you.
The pass from me.
Pass from... Yeah, well, Ruth, of course, is a bombshell, so she sets anyone at ease just by being in the room.
She's actually
28.
only got 60 appearance.
Well, that's above
28.
average, so she's probably a bombshell to this guy. He spends all his days surrounded by books, and... So, Smythe, was that a pass for you?
That's a pass. Everybody goes crazy about a sharp-dressed
Yeah.
man.
And Connie?
Yeah, I'm gonna push that, because otherwise it wouldn't be. There we go. Okay, yes, now it's a success.
Look, he says, folding his hands. I'm pretty much going against every rule in the book by offering this, but he stands up, makes his way to the bookshelf, and pulls out a book with a green spine. It's not a book at all, but a type of folder. A series of plastic pockets filled with reams of paper. He fishes around inside it for a moment and then hands you a stack of papers. I've got the boy's case file here, and I'll let you read through it, but I want you to promise me that none of this gets back to Chief Nichols, or anyone at the press, for that matter.
Of course. In return, we'll ask your discretion on the possible tie-in to Mr. Anderson's child. He wishes discretion as well. So I suppose
But
we
of
understand
course.
each other.
But of course, well, he stands up. I have rounds to attend to. I'll allow you to peruse that file at your pleasure, and when you're ready to see the boy, head down the hallway towards the patient dormitories and inform the orderly posted there that I've given you permission to see the boy. Best of luck. I hope you find what you're looking for, but the less I have to do with it, the better I'll sleep at night, I think. And then he exits the room, shutting the door, leaving you to decipher case notes written in the messiest, most stereotypical Dr. Chicken Scratch that you can imagine. So, I would like someone to go ahead and make a library use check to sort of sort out these case files and arrange them into some sort of chronological order.
I've got 40 for my education.
Smythe and Connie?
Library use, you say? I'm still
Yep.
at 20.
I'm
Books
at a
are
30,
things that-
so...
30? Alright,
Okay,
so
well, I
up to you,
rolled and
Ruth.
I passed 10 to 40. So
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
It's pretty much like arranging a script for you, arranging it into a series of acts and scenes. The notes are all jumbled, but you're able to make out the dates and the serial numbers and arrange them out on the coffee table in a chronological order. This will be much easier now to cut to the heart of what they contain, but you still have to pass that quite illegible writing. So I would ask someone to make an own language check, but you may make it with advantage as Ruth has managed to organize the files in a logical order for you.
Well, I do have English at 50. Has no one got
Where-
iron?
Oh, there it is. Is it? Hang on. So is it just your education?
Yeah, it's just your education if you haven't put points into it.
Well, I've got 80 education.
Go for
Yes,
it. Yeah,
just
heck
let
Oh,
Ruth
yeah.
do it.
Sounds like you again.
Oh my god, I'm gonna push it. You're fucking kidding me.
Well,
The thing
with the-
is,
with the
Ruth-
advantage.
Yeah. Remember, you've got the advantage, so you get to roll twice and take the lowest of what you roll, so you may not need to
Okay.
push it yet.
Okay, I got 15.
Yeah. So,
That's a
Look.
critical pass, by the way.
you're an actor. I'm sure some actors write just as bad as doctors. And while you certainly can't read everything, you're able to point out the salient parts. Read here, 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 and here. And Smythe and Connie lean over your shoulder as you begin to read the choice excerpts of the file. I'm going to put a picture up in Owlbear Rodeo so you can read along. So the first entry is dated 3 years ago. It says, apparent age, 14 or 15 years. When discovered in the woods east of Ipswich, the subject was found digging for grubs under a rotting lug. Clothes consisted of worn blue jeans, flannel shirt, and no shoes. Identity unknown, left in care of Arkham Sanitarium. 2 days later, patient John Doe remains unidentified, exhibits radical mood swings ranging from childlike humour to beast-like violence. Patient remains amnesiac with no recollection of who he is or where he's from. 2 weeks later, subject has been identified as Daniel Ames, son of Peter and Cynthia Ames of Arkham. Danny has been missing for 10 years, and at the time of his disappearance was thought to have been a victim of kidnapping. He is to be cared for at home by his parents. This should allow the best chance of memory recovery. 1 month later, Danny Ames admitted as a ward of the state and placed in isolation ward for observation, capable of outbursts of extreme violence. Prior to admittance, patient was found in his home, squatting on top of his mother's body and emitting loud croaking sounds. Although believed to have been responsible for the mother's death, authorities judged him unfit to stand trial and ruled it an accident, a wild animal attack. His father has formally committed him to the state's care. 2 months later, after several weeks of observation, patient shows recurring efforts to voice words and sometimes sentence fragments. He seems to talk of a cave where he played with someone he calls them. He attaches a certain almost mystical significance to those he calls them and someone he calls Snowden. Violent episodes are still frequent, but opiates show signs of controlling them. 1 year later, I spoke with the patient about his parents, hoping to jog his memory. He seemed to remember them, but later said, Mr. Ames wasn't really my daddy anymore. His mental development seems to have stabilized at around the level of a 7-year-old. Remaining entries. These continue in much the same vein. The patient shows little more in the way of improvement, and the violent outbursts seem to be controlled only by continually stronger doses of depressants. A decline in his physical health and cleanliness is noted. Thoughts?
Hmm.
Well, who should like to take the lead in the questioning then?
You still
We
wish
need
to
ask about
question
the
him after
cave, we
reading
need to
all
ask
that?
about Snowden, and we need to ask about them.
Them. Yeah,
Yeah.
3
That's what it
questions.
is. So what are we asking him? Because, yeah, as all the notes point out, he does seem to go into violent outbursts fairly often.
Remind me
Oh,
how old
Snowden.
he is?
So, according to the notes, he was 7 years old when abducted. He was missing for 10 years. So, based on the time he's been here, he's be about 19 at this point.
Is still
Okay.
mentally a child.
Yeah, he's not matured.
Yeah.
Can you think of any questions beyond the 3?
It should probably be Ruth. Okay.
Ruth that takes the lead. Yeah, she'd probably be the one who'd be able to reach out and be the least threatening.
Timmy, you're the one with the brain for these things, so I'll have you whispering in my ear, please.
And Connie, how will Connie handle this? Connie's good at conning people. She might be able to get him to open up in a different way. So,
yeah, we'll see how it goes, and then I might be able to con some info out of him.
I just put her name together, god damn it.
You fold the case notes back up into the folder and exit Dr. Ephraim's office. Follow his directions, and soon you come to the patient dormitories, which take up most of the first floor of the manor. There's a single male orderly there with a long black moustache, and when you tell him you have the doctor's permission to speak with Daniel Ames, he simply points down the hallway and says, "Last room on the left, good luck." And then ominously steps away, letting you access the hallway beyond. Make your way through the dormitory, heading down the hallway, and this part of the house has been retrofitted into what essentially boils down to a block of prison cells. They call it a dormitory, but the three of you, as you make your way through, feel that it seems much more like a prison. Each of the patients' rooms is tiny, cramped, and the doors have been refitted. Thick metal doors with barred windows that allow the patients to constantly be disturbed by the sounds and sights of people walking past or watching them through the window. The majority of them appear to sit listless, silent in their rooms. You get to the one at the very end of the hallway, Danny Ames's cell, and using the key that the orderly provided you with, you unlock the door and let yourselves in. Danny is being kept in a cement-walled cell with no furnishings other than a dirty mattress on the floor. His cell reeks of human waste. That's the first thing you notice as you step inside, and takes a few seconds to register, but then it does. Slight smell of fish, of salt, of the beach. As you enter the cell, you find Danny dressed only in a pair of pants, crawling across the floor on all fours, chasing after something. With a lunge, he snatches up a large cockroach from one of the dark corners of the room, holds it in his hands, peering at it for a second, and then pops it into his mouth, crunching it between his teeth with obvious relish, and then smiling as he looks at you, bits of cockroach shell still stuck between his yellowed teeth. And I'd like everyone to make a SAN check, please.
It too, Renfield.
Reef passes. Hard pass, actually.
Yeah, hard pass. Luckily, because you're still temporarily insane.
Oh god, am I?
Yeah, you will be until the end of this session.
I pass.
Yeah, that makes sense, actually.
This is nothing to Lord Smythe.
And Connie?
Yeah, that is a fail.
So, Connie, you lose 1d3 SAN, but Ruth and Smythe lose 1 each. It's certainly unsettling seeing the boy, but he's a human being. He's not a monster.
Ooh.
You lose all 3?
Yeah, rolled a 3.
He's a human being. He is not a monster. And after that initial surge of disgust, you're able to compose yourself, except for Connie, who just shudders as she sees the leg of a cockroach jiggling, still moving under his tongue, and she peers away. Ruth, I'd like you to make a power check for me, please.
Sure. I'm gonna push it. Okay, I got 48. Is it worth using luck on it?
Might not be a bad idea. How much would it take?
It would take 8.
8. Up to you.
I think I
Here's the thing. Remember, you are temporarily insane, and you can't
Yeah.
actually be sure whether the things I'm asking you to roll for are real or not.
Okay, I'm gonna push. I'm gonna use it.
The luck.
So that takes my luck down to 63.
63. Ooh. Ruth, as the boy smiles, you can swear that his gaunt face lingers on you for a moment longer than the others, and then he opens his mouth and licks his lips hungrily. You look at the others to check to see if they saw that, but when you look back, the boy's attention is no longer on you. He's just smiling as he was a second ago, seemingly unaware that people are here to talk to him. Going to break the silence.
Yeah, Ruth could be like, hi there.
His eyes immediately dart to you, and he just stares silently, cautiously, much like an animal, backing away slightly, still on all fours.
She gives a gentle little wave. I'm now realizing that some natural world skills or something to do with animals might be useful here, but we've got just regular psychological ability.
You're
Natural
trying to...
world?
Yeah, to reach out to animals. But I would like Ruth to go ahead and do a psychology check. Because,
Sure, that's a good one.
you're more focusing on trying to appear calm and unthreatening.
Okay, so she got a 2.
Yeah. So,
I think
Ruth,
that passes.
you see that he clearly is in the state of mind that he thinks he's some sort of animal. But you do rationalize that at the end of the day, he's still a human being. And despite what the orderly said, you want to apply human logic. So you make sure your demeanor is calm, quiet. Tell the others to make no sudden movements. Let your shoulders hang limp to reduce your profile, to make sure you don't appear as a threat, and approach him just as if you would any lost, confused child, waving encouragingly and saying hello. He shuffles away again, pressing himself into the corner of the cell, and then he looks up at you, and he nods, and he says, hello, miss. Do you know where I can find my mommy?
Oh, is she not around? You haven't seen her for a while?
My mommy said that the frogs were croaking too loud. She went out into the garden to see if she could make them quiet, but she didn't come back.
Oh, that's no good. I'd be happy to help you look for her in a minute.
Miss, are you a teacher or a police officer?
I'm a doctor.
As you say, doctor, he raises an eyebrow. His eyes glaze over. He shrinks back into the corner, bares his teeth, and hisses like a scared animal. But you do your best to calmly approach him.
I was going to say she would just sit there for a moment and not look concerned or not really act at all. Just not look him in the eye during that, but just make herself not seem like a threat while she waits for that to pass.
Don't like doctors, he says. Don't like needles. Too much prodding. Too much hurt.
It's okay. I don't like other doctors much either.
Not kind like Daddy. Not kind like them.
Them?
He nods. Them! My brothers and sisters in the cave under the beach. where we all play with Daddy and Mommy and swim in the ocean. We'll all be called back to the sea one day. We will be with Mommy and Daddy, a big happy family forever. They've all gone back to the sea. I'm waiting to be called back. Any day now.
Okay. By the way, are Connie and Smythe in the room?
Oh yes.
Yeah, okay.
Oh yes.
She's gonna just glance,
Giving you
sort of,
space, so not
give sort of a
freaking out.
furtive look to the two.
Would Daddy's name happen to be Snowden?
Immediately his eyes glimmer, and a fraction of the scared little boy that hides in this bestial man creeps forwards. Snowden, Daddy. All my brothers and sisters live with Daddy, and Daddy tells us how we can be good children, how we can make Mommy happy, so that when we return to the sea, we will live in paradise.
I see. We were to ask about the cave and them. What? Tell me about this cave. Tell me about this place, please. Well, tell her. Why don't you?
Is it a big cave? Is it a small cave? Is it warm? Is it cold?
I would ask Connie and Smythe to both make appearance checks, while Ruth makes another psychology check.
It's a pass for psychology.
Lord Smythe is going to take a bit of a risk. Pull out his handkerchief. You've got a bit on your mouth there. Hold still. And pretty much mop his face like a father.
Oh, bold.
Yeah, very bold indeed. And Connie?
What's that? 58, so it's a success.
D8.
9 out of 45. So evidently boldness worked.
The momentary hesitation seems to have passed. He creeps further out of the corner, still on all fours, and begins nodding, holding himself and rocking back and forth. The cave, the cave, the cave, yes, the cave, the cave, the cave. And then, Smythe, as you step forwards, pull out your handkerchief and say, "You've got a bit there, boy," and wipe him as a father would. He looks up at you. And I'd like you to make a luck check for me, please.
Luck's the thing Lord Smythe doesn't have. 77 over 20, so that's a failure.
77. The cave! The cave! He looks over at Ruth and he says, "The cave where the falcons sleep. The cave under the beach, under the farmhouse. All the brothers and sisters are there. We're not allowed to join with those in the sea until we've proven ourselves," and he recoils as the handkerchief touches his face. He scrambles back into the corner and he hisses, "Mr. Ames isn't my daddy anymore." He bares his teeth in a show of angry defiance.
It's okay, it's okay.
Connie, I will say that for you, as someone who's built their life around, well, conning people, what he's saying, that all the kids live in a cave with the father who is Snowden, and he teaches them exactly how to be good little boys and girls, so they may live in paradise forever. That sounds a lot like a cult to you.
Yeah.
James seems to think so. His animal-like eyes peer across the room towards Connie, and then he raises a shaking finger pointing at her, and he says, "Just like Mommy, The jingles and the jewelry. The adornments of Daddy's daddy in the sea. The adornments of Dagon.
What do you know? Dagon, boy, out with it.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Calm down.
Oh.
Smythe, go ahead and make me an intimidation check, please.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord Smythe's calm is gone in an instant. His eyes are flashing, and that's a success, 27. He is stern, he is angry, and his hand is creeping toward it, that lump under his coat.
The defiant animal inside him stares back, meeting your gaze, but then the scared boy trembles. He crawls back into the corner again, rocking back and forth, and he says, Dagon, Father Dagon, and Mother Hydra. We're not her true children, but Daddy says we can be, if we can just bridge the gap between us and them and live in harmony. They will welcome us, embrace us, Mommy and Daddy, and live in heaven in the sea.
Ruth pulls Smythe aside, just like acting like everything's fine, and she's like, "What the hell is that all about?"
Apologies. Nothing to speak of here. If there's anything to be asked, do ask it.
Yeah, maybe go take a load off, okay?
I don't believe I shall leave you alone in this cell, but I shall. On my word, I shall remain silent.
Cave, the cave! The cave under the beach where the falcons sleep! The cave under the beach, under the farmhouse! Mommy and Daddy and the brothers and sisters are there. I must return. I must return to them. He suddenly stands up. Up on his 2 feet, begins looking frantically around the cell, peering at the door over your shoulder. I have to return to the brothers and sisters. They have to call me back to the sea.
Is this beach, is it far from here? Would it take you long to get back?
Close, but not close. An hour on wheels, a day on foot. But the guidance of Mom and Dad's love will take me there. They're waiting for me, the brothers and sisters. They said they would call me back. They said they would come to get me. At this point, his demeanor suddenly shifts. His personality takes on a distinct change. His eyes narrow as his head slowly turns, peering directly into Ruth's eyes. And then he smiles. He opens his mouth and he shouts, "Just like you!" And he charges forwards, flailing his fists in the air, suddenly taken by an intense rage. One of them! Charging towards Ruth.
Okay, I pushed on a dodge roll and passed.
Yeah. He's only
Lord
a kid.
Smythe is going to try to take his cane to the fellow's midsection.
So Ruth...
Just wrap him in the solar plexus to make him sit down a bit.
Motherfucker.
And Connie, what are you gonna do?
I think Connie sort of freaks out a bit and jumps back and screams.
Yeah, Connie just
Like-
jumps back and screams. Ruth is on the ball. As soon as she sees him flailing his fist, she steps instinctually back, pressing against the door, and it's enough to put some distance between her and the flailing boy, while Lord Smythe rushes forwards, brings up his cane like a baton, and swings at the boy's solar plexus. I'd like you to go ahead and make a fighting check for me, please.
Not my greatest, but that's a fail.
That's a fail. He gets a regular success. He's not trying to attack you. He seems intent on getting to Ruth, his eyes almost bulging
Does
out
get
of their
past me.
sockets. But he doesn't get... I will allow you to fail at a cost if you like.
Succeed at a cost, you mean?
Yeah, succeed at a cost, I mean.
I'll succeed at a cost.
You step forwards, putting yourself between the boy and Ruth, and lunge out with your cane, striking him in the solar plexus. He gasps, winded, and then recovers almost instantaneously, flinging himself forward, trying to get to Ruth. You screw up your face, jab him again with your cane, and then throw yourself onto him, pinning him to the ground. He screams and roars like a rabid animal and sinks his dirty teeth into your neck, dealing 3 points of damage to you, drawing blood, biting deep enough that pain shoots down your spine.
Deuce bastard, get the orderlies in here.
Her, he says, struggling, pinned to the ground. Just them, like her, brothers, sisters, coming for me, them, they want to take me back. Connie, Ruth? What are you
Yeah,
doing?
Connie was going straight for the door.
Yeah,
As he
Connie's
started acting
rushing for the door.
like, yep.
I would like Connie to either make a
Right.
dex check to sprint down the hallway to fetch the orderly, or make a spot hidden check to see if you can catch an orderly nearby and get their attention.
Let's go with Dex. That is slightly better. I got a 1.
Oh,
As
wow.
we're zooming down the
Nice.
hallway.
Yeah, Connie is out of the room in an instant, sprinting down the hallway. You see the orderly with the bushy moustache, and you don't even need to say anything. He sees the look on your face, nods, and begins to follow you. And for the very first time, you notice the long truncheon dangling from his belt.
Okay, so at a distance within the room, Ruth is again lowering her stature to be as small as she can and trying to soothe the boy.
Yeah. I would like you to make for me either a hard psychology roll or a psychoanalysis roll.
Okay, well, got a 2 on the psychology roll.
How do you calm him? How do you try to calm him? He seems utterly intent on getting to you with every fiber of his being.
She just says, now, come on. Is this what your daddy would want?
Like me, they... He struggles, and instead of trying to break free of Smythe's grasp to get to Ruth, he just falls limp for a second, screaming at the top of his lungs. You can hear the footsteps of Connie and the orderly rushing down the hallway, and in the split second before they enter the room, he suddenly lets out a great roar, a bestial growl, and makes a huge lunge, trying to throw Smythe off his body. And I would like Smythe to make either a fighting check or a hard strength check for me.
Well, one's 25, the other is 50 divided 2 is 25, so it's 25 either way. Let's see how this goes. May Smythe try something, actually, before that happens. Smythe has stared down predators in darkest Africa. No small amount of them were human. I'd like to apply natural world to hold him with my gaze and
Yeah.
growl right back.
All right, natural gaze. It is very, very Wilbur Smith of you.
Don't get the reference, but that's okay.
He's a guy who used to write books like with a very colonialist lens about darkest Africa.
Well, that's kind of a smart attitude.
Yeah.
I think I'll burn 7 luck to have that succeed.
You force the boy right back down, look him in the eyes, bare your teeth, and growl like a wild cat. And it instantly silences him as the mustachioed orderly rushes into the room with Connie trailing behind. "Out of the way!" he shouts, raising his truncheon.
Gladly.
As you roll off the boy and he begins to whimper, the orderly steps over him, delivers the truncheon with a swift blow to the boy's rib. You hear the wince of pain and the wind knocked out of him. "Back in the corner, you devil spawn!" shouts the orderly as he whacks him with the truncheon again and again, forcing him into the corner. Daniel Ames once again on all fours, cowering in the corner like a scared animal, and as the orderly raises his truncheon one more time, the scared boy looks beyond the orderly to the three of you, and he whimpers, "Help me!"
We're done here, I think. Lord Smythe simply turns and leaves.
Connie, Ruth.
She wants to help him.
Between catching her breath, it's just, is that really necessary?
"He'll get violent if we don't put him down," says the orderly. "Last time he did this, he got free, and he bit someone's ear off."
You're just teaching him that violence is normal.
"The only way to deal with creatures such as him," says the orderly, and he begins
He was calm
to
and
drink.
helpful until I said the wrong thing. Until Smythe over here did even worse.
Ruth, you may go ahead and make a charm check.
Sure, that's how does charm work again? It's a thing. Okay. Yeah, that's a okay, so oh, actually I put points into it. Yeah, that's a pass. No, it's all good. I got thrown off by the half appearance thing, but yeah, it's a pass.
Yeah, he doesn't raise the truncheon, but he doesn't lower it anymore. Instead, he just looks over his shoulder, steps away, holding the truncheon out in front of him as a long stick, prodding the boy in his chest. "You stay there, you stay where you are, boy," he says. And as he backs away towards the door, he gestures for you to follow him. You've set him off quite enough."
I'm sorry about that. I truly am.
Once you're safely out of the cell, the orderly pulls the door shut, and as soon as it shuts, you hear Ames break down into utterly distraught sobbing from the small cell on the other side, still whispering, her, over and over again. The orderly frowns. "I know that Dr. Ephraim gave you permission, but I think you've done quite enough here."
No, you're quite right. We'll leave.
"Straight down there, through the courtyard, and be gone with you."
Thank you for your time.
And with that, I think we'll end this session.
Yeah.
You've uncovered some leads. The cave under the beach house where the falcons rest.
And the note the other team found mentioned Falcon's Point.
Falcon Point, a tiny fishing village, an hour's drive from Arkham.
Oh,
Officially part of the township of Innsmouth, though they're quite a distance away from each other on the map. It all comes to a head there. Or so you think. You're briefly struck with the urge when you meet up and recap each other in Charles Anderson's opulent suite about the day's events to pack your supplies into either Boothby or Smythe's car and get to Falcon Point and put an end to this.
We'll be taking both, I think.
Part of you wants to get there as soon as you can. It is, after all, only afternoon, and if you were to leave now, you'd reach Falcon Point just as the sun begins to set. You know where Carter Anderson is, and part of you wants to rush there, save him, and solve this mystery once and for all. Find out what Snowden is planning, find out what these poor children are being subjected to, and stop it. But Baxter is in the hospital, hanging on for dear life. He'll be in there at least overnight, and the way the doctors here tell, if he's going to accompany you, he'll need at least a full night's sleep to recover. He still won't be fully recovered, but he'll be up to walking, talking, and investigating. If you can keep him out of trouble, he might be able to accompany you. So I'll ask the question. Will you, instead of heading straight to Falcon Point, retire for the night and plan ahead? Allow Baxter some time to recover and prepare for what might await. Or will you simply leave Baxter in the hospital where you know, or rather where you think, he will be safe, and head to Falcon Point immediately?
This seems like quite the decision. How do you wish to handle it? Asks Lord Smythe.
well, I think at the very least we should let Baxter heal a bit.
Yeah, agreed. He's not in good shape.
Not to mention, Smythe's got a pretty sweltering bite mark on his neck now.
Yes.
I sure hope that doesn't become anything.
It occurs to me I can ask for the room adjacent to Mr. Baxter should any exploding bluebirds occur.
I'm very glad you said that.
In fact, I will see if I can't get in the same room with him and keep watch until he's fit to wake.
And with that, Smythe turns and leaves, leaving you to figure out what you're going to explain Charles Anderson when he arrives home that evening, and leaving you to your own devices to plan for what comes ahead. And that concludes part 2 of Bless the Beast and Children. I will say that night, a strange figure from out of town, who, if anyone were to witness him, would describe him as having a bulbous chin and eyes of a bullfrog requested to see Mr. Baxter in the St. Mary's Teaching Hospital. But when he heard that one of Baxter's close friends was already engaging in a night-long vigil, simply shrugged, said in a low voice, "Another time then," and disappeared into the night.
Not tonight, Cthulhu.
So, you may each pick a single skill and increase it by 1d6 as you've completed the investigation phase of this scenario. And next session, you'll travel to Falcon Point for the climax of Bless the Beasts and Children. You'll be thrust into the most dangerous part of this scenario, and there's no guarantee at all that all of you will make it out alive to face the next story. So go ahead. Take the chance to upgrade a skill while you can. You have once again entered the world of Eldritch Horror. Until next time.